Unlocking the veiled past. When AI pierces millennia of silence, there exist thresholds humanity has, until now, never dared to cross. Beyond these lie not the glimmer of forgotten gold or the allure of ancient power, but secrets meticulously interred for thousands of years. Ancient symbols that once seemed devoid of meaning. Mysterious texts long consumed by the relentless shadows of time, have now, for the first time in recorded history, been unfurled and deciphered by the piercing gaze of artificial intelligence. The most unsettling realization, perhaps, isn't that we struggled to decode them, but rather that we have, at long last, truly grasped their terrifying implications. And what unfurled before us was a revelation far more chilling than any silence could ever be. In the year 2025, a collective of pioneering scientists, harnessing the formidable capabilities of advanced AI technology, unveiled a discovery that sent reverberations across the globe. For the first time ever, entire ancient languages, once defiantly deemed indecipherable, such as the enigmatic Rongorongo script of Easter Island, the Linear A from Crete, and the perplexing Etruscan writing, had been completely, unequivocally decoded. This monumental announcement instantaneously seized global attention, captivating minds from the echelons of elite archaeology to the casual history enthusiast. The world, a collective gasp, turned its gaze towards this monumental breakthrough, a gaze imbued with a curious blend of excitement and profound unease. Initially, a widespread sentiment prevailed that AI would herald a glorious new golden age for archaeology. It was believed that this unprecedented tool would empower humanity to forge a deeper, more nuanced understanding of the very origins and subsequent evolution of civilization itself. However, merely months after these ancient texts yielded their secrets to the AI's analytical prowess, experts began to confront the stark, unvarnished truth. The revelations they unearthed were far from the innocuous wisdom of a bygone era. What they had, in fact, brought to light were dire warnings. Profound truths deliberately shrouded in secrecy, and meticulously detailed chronicles of brutal conspiracies, all meticulously etched into symbols that, on the surface, appeared entirely innocent. Dr. Eleonora Hayes, a pivotal lead researcher on the groundbreaking AI project, recounted her initial, visceral experience reading an AI-generated translation of ancient Mayan script. "I felt as though I was teetering precariously at the very edge of a precipice," she described. What had been universally assumed to be simple, benign rituals were unveiled as horrific ceremonies, demanding the gruesome involvement of blood and the lives of thousands of innocent individuals. And chillingly, that was merely the prelude. With each passing day, as more ancient texts were systematically fed into the AI's processing maw, every new translation unfurled even more profoundly disturbing revelations. The scientific community found itself profoundly shaken. Global media, with an almost instinctive understanding of the profound unease it evoked, swiftly christened this chilling phenomenon the language of shadows. Those ancient characters, once perceived as harmless historical curiosities, had abruptly been thrust into the epicenter of a worldwide, simmering debate. Whispers, faint at first, then growing in intensity, began to propagate. Had humanity, through an act of unwitting curiosity, inadvertently unsealed a portal that was never, ever meant to be opened? These questions proliferated exponentially, rippling across online forums, surging through social media feeds, and even infiltrating the seemingly mundane conversations exchanged around dinner tables. Was our insatiable curiosity, our relentless pursuit of knowledge, inexorably guiding us towards secrets too utterly terrifying to confront, too agonizing to bear? And perhaps, most hauntingly of all, why had the magnificent civilizations of the past gone to such extraordinary lengths to meticulously inter these truths, safeguarding them with such profound care? What were they striving to shield us from? For some, these unsettling findings served as an irresistible, thrilling invitation to delve even deeper into the concealed depths of history. For others, however, they resonated as a dire, unambiguous warning. As new translations steadily emerged, a growing number of individuals began to feel a profound sense that history wasn't simply a narrative that had been forgotten. Rather, it had been deliberately, meticulously erased. Systematically hidden away, sealed off for reasons we were, by design, never meant to scrutinize or question. And now, through our relentless technological pursuit, we had forcibly dragged those very secrets back into the unwelcome glare of the light. Amidst this escalating tempest of probing questions and mounting fear, one deeply unsettling idea began to take root and solidify. Perhaps, just perhaps, history itself harbored no desire to be remembered. And so, in this very video, Bedtime History will journey alongside you, not with the intent to soothe your mind, but to plunge you deeper into the most terrifying revelations ever unlocked by AI from the cryptic depths of ancient languages. Proceed with the utmost caution as you embark upon this series. For once you step into the chilling world of ancient mysteries, mercilessly unlocked by the unblinking eye of artificial intelligence, there is, quite simply, no turning back. These are not comforting bedtime stories designed to lull you into slumber. These are stark, unvarnished historical truths. And each one, in its own somber resonance, carries a profound, dark warning emanating from the distant past. A warning humanity, in its collective wisdom or perhaps folly, once consciously chose to forget. And now, let us commence this formidable journey into a realm where every secret painstakingly uncovered simultaneously casts a new, unsettling shadow. Where each meticulously decoded word carries not merely knowledge, but a message, a solemn warning meticulously buried within the annals of history. One final, lingering echo from a world that has long since faded from collective consciousness. But the truly pressing question remains, do we, even now, still possess the opportunity to retreat, to turn back from this precipice of revelation? The Sumerian enigma, blood, prophecy, and the abyss of acceptance. More than 5 millennia ago, nestled along the formidable banks of the Euphrates and Tigris rivers, one of humanity's earliest and most profound civilizations, the Sumerians, majestically emerged from the fertile lands of Mesopotamia. Modern scholarship widely credits the Sumerians as the ingenious architects of foundational innovations, the wheel, the very concept of writing, the intricate framework of law, and the nascent science of astronomy. Yet behind this luminous, celebrated legacy, meticulously concealed beneath the relentless erosion of countless layers of time, resided an unsettling collection of dark secrets. Secrets that had lain dormant for millennia, patiently biding their time, awaiting the precise, opportune moment to reemerge and cast their chilling light upon the present. Cities such as Uruk and Lagash garnered widespread renown for their awe-inspiring, grand temples, their majestic, towering monuments, and perhaps most significantly, the world's inaugural system of written communication, cuneiform. For an extended period, scholars universally held the belief that these distinctive wedge-shaped inscriptions constituted nothing more than mundane records of historical events, commercial transactions, and conventional religious rituals. This deeply ingrained belief system was, however, irrevocably shattered the moment artificial intelligence embarked upon a profound, far more discerning reading of these ancient clay tablets. Possessing capabilities that transcended the inherent limitations of the human mind, AI did not merely perform a direct translation. Instead, it intricately connected long-forgotten fragments of information, shards of knowledge scattered haphazardly across countless centuries. Seemingly disparate and unrelated records began to coalesce and merge, gradually unveiling a haunting, coherent picture of a world that no modern individual could have ever conceived. What had previously been summarily dismissed as tedious or redundant information now meticulously formed a narrative that sent shivers down the spines of even the most seasoned and stoic researchers. One of the most infamous and unsettling artifacts subjected to AI analysis was Tablet Uruk 217, discovered within the sacred confines of the temple dedicated to the goddess Inanna. Initially, scholars had benignly presumed it merely described a straightforward rain-making ritual. However, when the AI systematically dissected and fully analyzed each intricate symbol, a horrifying and inescapable truth emerged. It was, in stark reality, a meticulous record of gruesome human sacrifices, brutally performed in a desperate, sanguineous plea to earn the elusive protection of the gods. The ancient characters materialized on the screen, rendered with an unnerving sharpness and an unsettling coldness, resonating like an echoing voice emanating directly from the shadowy depths of the underworld. When darkness descends and cloaks the entire land, and the moon itself turns a chilling crimson hue, the chilling text proclaimed, 10 youthful souls shall be reverently offered to Inanna. It continued, their blood, warm and vital, must be allowed to cascade freely down the sacred stone. Their flesh consumed entirely by fire, so that the goddess may be appeased, and ruin, in its devastating wake, may bypass our city. According to the AI's unsettling interpretation, these horrifying ceremonies were not isolated, infrequent occurrences. They were, in fact, recurring rituals, systematically performed whenever impending disaster loomed ominously on the horizon. Whether the threat materialized as war, devastating plague, or foreboding, inauspicious signs observed from the heavens, the macabre rites were enacted without fail. The victims, tragically, were frequently young children or virgins, meticulously selected and ruthlessly sacrificed by high-ranking priests. As AI delved even deeper into the voluminous collection of Sumerian writings, more such horrific rituals were brought to the disconcerting light. One particular clay tablet unearthed from Lagash meticulously detailed a mass sacrifice, executed with the grim intention of halting the relentless march of a devastating plague. The chilling inscription read, when Namur, the malevolent god of pestilence, breathes the very essence of death upon the beleaguered city, the high priest shall carefully select 100 pure lives. Their bodies shall be sacrificed, their blood mingled inextricably with clay to construct a new wall, a formidable barrier that disease, in its insidious advance, cannot possibly surmount. The truly chilling aspect was not solely the gruesome content of these texts, but rather the dispassionate, almost matter-of-fact tone in which the Sumerians meticulously documented these unspeakable acts. These were not secretive, illicit texts, whispered in hushed tones in the dead of night. On the contrary, they were formal, meticulously preserved records, treated as if human sacrifice was a completely normalized, indeed, even an indispensable component of their daily existence. And then, the most terrifying discovery of all materialized, prophetic warnings unequivocally foretelling the imminent demise of their very civilization. On Tablet 132, AI painstakingly translated the final, despairing message of a priest named Inshar. He vehemently claimed it was a direct, irrefutable divine revelation. The gods have delivered their decree. The translation stated with grim finality, our city shall be consumed by the ravaging flames of fire. The Euphrates, once a life-giving artery, shall run crimson with blood. No living soul shall remain to recount the profound sorrow. For mankind has trespassed too far, and the gods, their patience exhausted, no longer extend their forgiveness for our overweening pride. What rendered these words so profoundly terrifying was not merely the prophecy itself, but the eerily precise accuracy with which it ultimately manifested. Indeed, in the documented annals of history, the magnificent cities of Sumer were, in fact, ravaged and ultimately destroyed by the relentless forces of war, devastating natural disasters, and the insidious corrosive power of social collapse. Just as the tablet had so clearly warned thousands of years prior, through the unfiltered lens of AI, we were granted an unprecedented, chilling glimpse into the Sumerian psyche, their intricate culture, their consuming obsessions, and the profound, festering darkness that resided at the very core of their rituals and their prophecies. Yet, perhaps the most horrifying truth of all isn't merely buried in the distant past. It resides in the unsettling manner in which the Sumerians, with an almost incomprehensible stoicism, accepted every horrific aspect of their existence. Sacrifice, inescapable doom, unbridled divine fury, all were integrated as an intrinsic, accepted part of their everyday life. What unimaginable forces could have propelled such a powerful and sophisticated civilization into such a terrifying abyss of acceptance? Was there an unseen hand, a malevolent entity? Or perhaps even a collective unseen force, meticulously pulling the strings from behind the scenes, orchestrating their grim destiny? In the profound and echoing silence of history, the Sumerian's voice continues to reverberate, a chilling and insistent warning emanating from the underworld, a message we, in our modern comfort, profoundly wished we had never heard. And perhaps, the most truly terrifying secrets are still patiently awaiting their discovery, nestled within the next ancient text that AI, in its relentless pursuit of knowledge, will inevitably unlock. The Mayan cycles, blood, prophecy, and the looming darkness. In 2012, the world collectively held its breath, suspended in anxious anticipation of the prophesied end of days, as foretold by the enigmatic ancient Mayan prophecy. However, when that fateful day dawned and subsequently passed without incident, a global sigh of relief was exhaled, and many simply scoffed, dismissing it as a harmless jest, a naive misinterpretation of antiquated records. And yet, as artificial intelligence delved ever deeper into the intricate labyrinth of Mayan texts, meticulously deciphering their complex symbols, a far more disquieting truth began to surface. The 2012 prophecy, it was revealed, was not a mere misunderstanding. It undeniably possessed profound meaning. It simply wasn't the meaning humanity had so readily, and perhaps foolishly, assumed. The Maya stood as one of ancient America's most advanced and profoundly mysterious civilizations. They were widely celebrated for their astonishingly precise calendars, their astronomical knowledge which far surpassed the understanding of their own era, and their majestic, imposing temple cities. Yet, beneath this dazzling veneer of brilliance and profound wisdom lay a chilling, deeply ingrained tradition, one meticulously constructed upon the gruesome foundation of blood and horrifying human sacrifice. The ancient texts, now meticulously decoded by AI, unequivocally revealed that the Mayans did not merely engage in human sacrifice to placate capricious deities. They performed these horrific rites with a far more profound and terrifying purpose: to avert something they ominously termed the cycle of eternal darkness. This deeply held belief was meticulously documented with an eerie, disturbing clarity in inscriptions discovered at venerable ancient cities such as Tikal, Chichen Itza, and Palenque. One particularly unsettling text, painstakingly reconstructed by AI from fragments found at Chichen Itza, sent shockwaves reverberating throughout the global archaeological community. It swiftly became known as the Stone of Shadows. This stone provided a meticulously detailed record of a 5,125-year cycle, unequivocally concluding in the year 2012. But rather than graphically portraying a literal, cataclysmic apocalypse, the stone's chilling inscription read, "When the long cycle inexorably closes, darkness shall not descend in a single, annihilating breath, but shall insidiously creep, slowly, into the very hearts of mankind." It continued, with an almost prophetic resonance, "It is not the end, but rather the genesis. A time of unbridled chaos, relentless war, devastating plague, and widespread hunger shall relentlessly unfold." Thus, 2012 was not destined to be the world's ultimate demise, but rather the ominous genesis of something far darker. A chilling new epoch in which humanity would descend gradually, and agonizingly, into ever-deepening instability. And reflecting upon the tumultuous state of the world since 2012, it is undeniably difficult to dismiss how disturbingly accurate that ancient prophecy now tragically appears. As AI tirelessly explored a greater volume of these ancient texts, it consistently unearthed increasingly gruesome and disturbing rituals. One particular record, meticulously preserved from Tikal, vividly described a terrifying blood ceremony wherein priests would draw their own blood, along with that of the sacrificial victims, to reverently offer it to their formidable gods. The text chillingly declared, Blood is the solitary bridge through which the gods may deign to hear our pleas, it further detailed. The body of the offering shall be reverently raised atop the temple. A heart, still vibrant and beating, shall be meticulously severed and presented, so that the inexorable cycle of darkness may not utterly consume our world. These rituals, it became chillingly clear, were not merely symbolic gestures. They were considered absolutely essential to the Mayan spiritual framework. Human blood was held in the highest sacred regard, deemed the very life force through which unimpeded communication with divine powers was believed to flow. Sacrifice, then, was their desperate, fervent method of pleading with gods they both profoundly feared and deeply revered. The illustrious city of Palenque, once under the sagacious rule of the legendary King Pakal, also left behind a trove of chilling and deeply unsettling texts. One particularly striking inscription from his tomb, painstakingly reconstructed by AI, vividly depicted repeating cycles of catastrophic devastation. When the darkness stirs and fully awakens, the text ominously warned, serpents of fire shall writhe and crawl forth from the very earth itself. Blood, like rain, shall pour from the sky. The parched ground will wither, and all crops shall perish without exception. The meager survivors shall endure endless suffering. Only sacrificial blood may, for one more cycle, delay the relentless march of the encroaching darkness. History, in its undeniable record, affirmed that the Maya were far from unacquainted with devastation, protracted droughts, brutal civil wars, and ultimately, the mysterious and precipitous collapse of their civilization in the 9th century AD. Historians, for a long time, had posited that their downfall was attributable to either drastic climate change or debilitating internal strife. But now, armed with the unprecedented assistance of AI, a profounder, more unsettling truth is inexorably surfacing. The Maya, it appears, profoundly believed they were cursed, not because of any inherent ignorance on their part, but precisely because of the profound depth with which they comprehended the intricate, rhythmic dance of the cosmos. They perceived the impending end with chilling clarity. They harbored a deep, abiding fear of their own formidable knowledge, and they desperately fought against the inevitable with the currency of blood. The greatest secret AI unveiled about the Maya wasn't merely their brutal rituals or their ominous prophecies. It was, in fact, their terrifying, prescient awareness that the trajectory of human history relentlessly churns in endless, cyclical patterns of darkness, and that humanity invariably hovers at the very precipice of the next cataclysmic collapse. Perhaps the true horror resides not in the gruesome nature of their sacrifices, but in the dawning, unsettling realization that their ancient fears are, with a chilling inevitability, now becoming our own. Are those ancient warnings, and their profound implications, truly directed at us? Are the dark cycles, with their relentless and brutal rhythm, commencing anew, even as we speak? In the profound and lingering shadows of history, the voice of the Maya continues to whisper, cold and eerily quiet, into the ears of those courageous enough, or perhaps foolish enough, to truly listen. Easter Island's silent screams, a self-inflicted apocalypse. Nestled in the vast, boundless expanse of the Pacific Ocean, utterly isolated from any continental landmass, lies a small, solitary island that has, for centuries, inexorably captivated the boundless curiosity of humanity. Easter Island, or Rapa Nui, is globally renowned for its hundreds of towering, enigmatic moai statues. Their silent, solemn faces, carved from volcanic rock, stand as eternal sentinels, guarding a profound secret that has, until now, seemed perpetually beyond the grasp of human comprehension. Yet these colossal moai statues, despite their imposing grandeur, are not the island's most profound or enduring mystery. For hundreds of years, the world has pondered with unyielding fascination what befell the indigenous Rapa Nui people, a once thriving civilization that appeared to vanish with an almost supernatural suddenness, leaving behind barely a trace. At the very heart of this enduring enigma lies Rongorongo, an extraordinarily intricate and complex system of glyphs meticulously created by the Rapa Nui themselves. For centuries, countless scholars, with all their intellectual prowess, fruitlessly attempted to decipher its cryptic language. But when artificial intelligence, with its unparalleled computational might, finally shattered this formidable linguistic barrier, messages of profound desperation and unadulterated horror began to emerge, whispering with an unsettling clarity from these ancient wooden tablets. The glyphs, once summarily dismissed as inconsequential or decorative, sprung to life with a raw, agonizing intensity, as if narrating the final, chilling confession of a civilization that, through its own tragic hubris, had utterly consumed itself. The inaugural message AI painstakingly decoded from the Mamre tablets sent a collective shiver of disbelief through the entire scientific community. It read with stark, heartbreaking simplicity: "The island no longer possesses trees. The verdant forest has vanished completely. The land lies barren and dead. We have dutifully offered our blood to the gods, yet the gods, deaf to our pleas, no longer listen." The message concluded with an agonizing lament: "We are slowly, inexorably dying, and no one is coming to our aid." Once a lush, vibrant paradise, Easter Island had indeed been home to flourishing forests and an abundant supply of sustenance. But the decoded text unveiled a cruel, unvarnished truth. The Rapa Nui civilization did not collapse due to an unavoidable twist of fate, but rather as a direct consequence of their own unchecked greed, their profound arrogance, and their blind, unshakable faith in their own perceived omnipotence. Another tablet, known as the Aruka Karenga, harbored a haunting, self-incriminating confession regarding the colossal undertaking of constructing the gargantuan Moai statues. "We meticulously sculpted statues for our esteemed ancestors," the text admitted, desperately imploring their divine protection. "But to laboriously transport them to their sacred resting grounds, hundreds upon hundreds of trees were ruthlessly felled. The devastating consequence," as the text starkly stated, was that the land was irrevocably ruined. It continued, with a chilling portrayal of their descent into savagery. "Now the ancestors, in their silent, stone-faced vigil, watch as we mercilessly slaughter one another for mere scraps of sustenance." The AI, in its relentless analysis, unearthed a multitude of other passages, meticulously detailing widespread hunger, brutal tribal warfare, and an unimaginable depth of despair. From the Taha tablet, a particularly chilling account emerged. "The ground lies utterly carpeted with the dead," it stated with stark imagery. "The children, their voices choked by despair, weep without making a sound. The tribes, in a desperate struggle for survival, butcher one another without mercy. We have lost everything, utterly and completely." The final line resonated with profound desolation. Now, only unyielding despair remains. One tablet after another recounted the same devastating, tragic narrative of a society inexorably spiraling into total ecological collapse, descending into an abyss of unbridled chaos and savage violence. Another inscription vividly described the desperate reality that everyday life had devolved into. "We meticulously conceal every sweet potato, every meager, small fish," the text revealed. "If anyone dares to discover them, the immediate price is death. Killing is no longer a strange or shocking act. Only the strong, the ruthless, survive to see another day." But the most profoundly haunting discovery emanated from the KT tablet. It contained a crystal-clear, unambiguous message. The Rapa Nui had, with chilling prescience, seen their own demise approaching, yet were utterly powerless to halt its relentless advance. The AI translated a grim, hopelessly despairing line: "We clearly perceived where our chosen path would inevitably lead. Yet no one, not a single soul, heeded the solemn warnings." The confession continued with a sense of utter futility. "Everything was in vain. Death, with its cold embrace, irrevocably chose us, and no one, absolutely no one, could alter that immutable fate." These were not comforting myths, woven from the fabric of imagination. They were not ethereal metaphors, open to subjective interpretation. They were, in raw, unvarnished truth, detailed records, honest, desperate, and devastatingly candid, of a people witnessing, in slow motion, their own self-inflicted annihilation. Easter Island's tragic downfall was not orchestrated by some external, mysterious force, but was rather a direct consequence of self-destruction. And the most profoundly terrifying aspect of the AI's translations was not merely the Rapa Nui's abject despair, but their chillingly clear, undeniable awareness of the destructive trajectory they were on. They knew, with a horrifying lucidity, that they were actively extinguishing their own future, and yet they were utterly incapable of stopping the inexorable descent. AI meticulously reconstructed these messages with a painful, agonizing clarity, painting a vivid, unsparing portrait of a once vibrant and thriving civilization that, slowly and agonizingly, consumed itself from within. The majestic Moai statues, which once proudly symbolized strength and unwavering pride, now appear not as triumphant monuments, but as silent, solemn witnesses to a society that, in its final, self-destructive throes, relentlessly tore itself asunder. The Rapa Nui did not mysteriously vanish into the mists of time. They perished silently, in profound isolation. Their last desperate cries, meticulously carved into wood, lay waiting for centuries for someone, anyone, to finally hear their silent anguish. And now, AI has rendered those long-silenced cries audible once more. This is no longer merely a tragic narrative about a lost island adrift in the vast Pacific. It is, with chilling clarity, a profound warning. Because the most profoundly disturbing aspect of the Rapa Nui's story is not their ultimate demise. It is, rather, how unnervingly familiar their tragic narrative feels in our contemporary world. Are we, in our own relentless pursuit, unwittingly repeating their catastrophic path? Are we blinded by unchecked ambition, deaf to the solemn warnings of history, utterly convinced that the end will never, ever befall us? And when, inevitably, it does arrive, will anyone, truly anyone, be listening? As the cold, unforgiving wind sweeps across Easter Island, the desperate messages of the Rapa Nui continue to echo, not in audible voices, but in a profound, unsettling silence. A haunting, poignant reminder, meticulously carved into wood and purposefully left for us, the ultimate, the last readers. Will we heed the solemn warning before it is irrevocably too late? Göbekli's blood altars. The dawn of ritual fear. Göbekli, an archaeological marvel quietly reposing on the stark, barren highlands of southeastern Turkey, persistently remains one of the most profoundly perplexing mysteries in the entire tapestry of human history. This is a site of such unfathomable antiquity that when its foundational stones were first laboriously raised, humanity still largely inhabited the primordial age of nomadic hunters and gatherers. Thousands of millennia before the emergence of any known, organized civilization. When Göbekli was initially brought to light, archaeologists were struck dumb with utter astonishment. The sprawling site unveiled massive, distinctive T-shaped stone pillars, each soaring over 5 meters in height and weighing an astonishing dozens of tons. These monolithic structures were intricately carved with a menagerie of animals and a plethora of strange, enigmatic symbols that no modern mind could fully, or even partially, decipher. These mysterious carvings lay in profound silence beneath countless layers of accumulated earth, as if patiently awaiting the precise, opportune moment to finally speak their long-held truths. That pivotal moment arrived when artificial intelligence, with its unprecedented analytical capabilities, finally succeeded in systematically analyzing the strange and cryptic symbols meticulously etched onto these imposing pillars and the surrounding, equally enigmatic stones. What the AI uncovered was not mere decorative embellishment or ordinary, administrative text. Instead, it revealed a series of short, yet chillingly explicit messages. Vivid and disturbing descriptions of mass human sacrifices, ruthlessly performed at this very sacred site. The very first translation, emanating from the central pillar, rendered archaeologists utterly speechless. It declared with chilling clarity, "Human blood serves as the very door. The inscription continued with an ominous promise. When the sun itself dies, new life, miraculously, will return. But only when blood flows profusely across the sacred stones. But this was merely the beginning of the horrifying revelations. More stones were meticulously decoded, each resonating with the same brutal, blood-soaked theme. They meticulously detailed rituals involving young, robust individuals, carefully chosen for the ultimate sacrifice to appease mysterious, unseen entities chillingly referred to as the Watchers of the Sky. One smaller stone, painstakingly decoded by AI, described the ritual with haunting and graphic specificity. "Choose the strongest among them," it commanded. "Bring them to the largest stone on the day the sun expires." The chilling instruction continued. "Let their blood, warm and vital, spill profusely upon the stone, so the gods may receive sustenance, life, and not abandon us to the suffocating embrace of darkness." These revelations sent seismic tremors throughout the academic world. Gökleitepe, it became horrifyingly clear, was not merely a site for reverent prayer or placid worship. It was, in stark reality, a grandiose theater for ritual sacrifice, conducted on a scale utterly unprecedented in the earliest chapters of human history. AI also meticulously uncovered new, unsettling meanings behind the intricate animal carvings adorning the pillars. Snakes, birds, scorpions, and lions, once benignly presumed to be harmless symbols of the natural world, were, in truth, visceral representations of powerful and terrifying deities, each relentlessly demanding blood to remain satiated and appeased. Of all these symbolic animals, the serpent appeared with the most chilling frequency, and AI offered a grim, unequivocal interpretation. The serpent, the translation ominously stated, is the unwavering guardian of the gateway to the other world. Only through the act of sacrifice may the gate swing open, and souls be gloriously reborn into new life. Most profoundly frightening of all were the messages meticulously documenting the sheer, overwhelming scale of these sacrifices. One inscription chillingly recorded the staggering total of a single ritual. Today, 500 souls were offered to the gods. Blood flowed crimson and freely over the stone. The text concluded with an unsettling implication. Now we may know peace for one more season. These sacrifices were not rare, isolated occurrences. They constituted meticulously repeated ritual cycles, observed and perpetuated over many centuries. Gökleitepe was not simply a hallowed site, it was the very centerpiece of an organized, blood-drenched system of belief, meticulously passed down through countless generations. AI's discoveries unequivocally shattered earlier, more benevolent assumptions. The people of Gökleitepe were not merely primitive hunter-gatherers, living simple, uncomplicated lives. They were, in stark contrast, a deeply spiritual, rigidly structured society, possessing a sophisticated and brutally effective system of religious practice. The towering pillars of Gökleitepe, once benignly thought to be monuments to peace and harmonious existence, were, in unsettling truth, altars, sacred tables upon which some of the bloodiest rituals ever recorded in human history were brutally enacted. And as AI completed the painstaking translation of the final cryptic stones, one overarching question inevitably emerged, a question that deeply disturbed even the most seasoned and stoic researchers. Was Gökleitepe an isolated, anomalous case, or merely the inaugural piece of chilling evidence from a long-forgotten epic saturated with ritualistic blood and pervasive fear? What transpired here may not be an exception at all, but rather a chilling glimpse into a terrifying chapter of humanity that we have only just begun to truly comprehend. The events meticulously documented at Gökleitepe are far more than a mere ancient tragedy. They stand as a profound warning, a stark reminder of the extraordinary lengths to which humans have always been willing to go in their desperate efforts to confront their deepest, most primal fears. Even before the very dawn of civilization, before the invention of writing, before the organized existence of cities, humanity was already constructing temples steeped in blood. We ruthlessly sacrificed one another in a futile attempt to exert control over the vast, terrifying unknown. And perhaps, even then, we were already, inexorably, losing control. Göbekli Tepe still stands in profound silence, its ancient stones staring fixedly across the barren, windswept earth. They no longer whisper comforting myths, but rather cold, unvarnished truths. Truths born of primal fear, of brutal sacrifice, and of the violent, sanguinary roots of belief itself. Perhaps it was here, at Göbekli Tepe, that humanity first confronted the harshest and most unsettling lesson of all, that our deepest, most visceral fears do not, in their true origin, emanate from the gods, but rather from the terrifying depths of our own inner selves. And that profound, chilling lesson, even now, we stubbornly refuse to fully confront or accept. Alexandria's ashes. The assassination of knowledge. For over 2 millennia, the hallowed library of Alexandria has been enshrined in human memory as the preeminent symbol of ancient human knowledge and intellectual prowess. Legends whisper that it once housed more than 500,000 scrolls, meticulously preserving nearly every known piece of information accessible to humanity at that profound historical juncture. However, its ultimate fate tragically unfolded as one of the most profound calamities of the ancient world, a legendary, cataclysmic fire that devoured nearly the entire monumental archive of human wisdom, reducing it to mere ashes. Yet, when artificial intelligence embarked upon the meticulous analysis of scorched fragments of ancient texts, painstakingly recovered from the very ruins of the library, the long-accepted narrative of Alexandria's fiery destruction took a far darker and chillingly colder turn. This newly unveiled truth was starkly different from what history had so long and so complacently recorded. AI possessed the uncanny ability to reconstruct fragments once mournfully considered lost forever. This was particularly true for private letters and intimate notes meticulously penned by the library's scholars and librarians, which collectively unveiled the chilling and elaborate tale of political conspiracy and the deliberate, calculated destruction of invaluable knowledge. One particularly poignant letter, miraculously recovered from a charred papyrus fragment, was written by a librarian named Cleon to a trusted friend residing in Athens. It delivered the first, deeply disturbing clue. The scrolls, it unequivocally stated, did not perish by accident. They were ordered to be destroyed, specifically the ones they feared the most. The letter lamented, with a sense of profound tragedy. We are bearing witness to the cold, calculated murder of knowledge, an intellectual assassination unlike any that has ever transpired before. Historians had, for an extended period, comfortably believed that the fire was either an unfortunate accident or regrettable collateral damage incurred during wartime. However, the restored texts, painstakingly brought back to life by AI, narrated a starkly different and profoundly unsettling story. An internal library record, meticulously reconstructed by AI, described the precise events that unfolded moments before the devastating conflagration. Soldiers arrived under the clandestine cloak of night, meticulously following direct orders emanating from the highest echelons of power. They carefully selected which scrolls would be consumed by the flames first. Works on controversial political philosophy, forbidden astronomical discoveries, and the unvarnished, true histories of the royal lineage. As AI delved even deeper into the labyrinthine details, the genuine, sinister motive behind the fire inexorably emerged. It was not a random act of destruction, born of chaos or happenstance. It was, instead, a meticulously calculated political act, masterfully orchestrated to meticulously keep power and knowledge firmly out of the grasp of the common populace. One particularly damning document revealed the chilling confession of a high-ranking official serving under Ptolemy VII, the very individual who had overseen this orchestrated destruction. Our power, the official's chilling words revealed, is inextricably dependent upon the ignorance of the people. These very scrolls will inevitably compel them to ask questions we are utterly incapable of answering. Burn them. Let only the truths we meticulously choose to remain. Other documents, painstakingly restored, unveiled the horrifying truth that the Library of Alexandria once harbored truly dangerous knowledge, scrolls meticulously detailing the true motion of the planets. Groundbreaking discoveries that threatened to unravel the very fabric of the established social order. And radical philosophies that brazenly challenged the divine authority asserted by the ruling elite. A letter penned by the chief librarian, Ariston, written moments before the Inferno, was reconstructed with haunting, agonizing clarity. "I witnessed the first tongues of flame ascend," he wrote with a sense of profound despair. "They made no effort whatsoever to conceal their malevolent intent. They openly declare that knowledge itself is the gravest threat, and for that egregious transgression it must be utterly consumed by fire." The letter concluded with a desperate plea, a poignant testament to his hope. "I commit these lines to parchment, fervently hoping that someone, someday, will uncover this terrible truth." AI's groundbreaking discoveries did not merely illuminate the sinister political motivations behind the library's destruction. They also heartbreakingly revealed the profound anguish and sacrifices of those who valiantly attempted to safeguard this invaluable knowledge. Many dedicated librarians and scholars courageously risked their very lives to conceal precious scrolls, only to be relentlessly hunted down and brutally executed for their defiance. One final, deeply sorrowful document was penned by an anonymous Alexandrian scholar who bore witness to the cataclysmic burning. "The flames, ravenous and relentless, reached into the heavens," the scholar lamented. "The scrolls, once repositories of wisdom, turned to mere ash." The text concluded with a profound, almost prophetic, lament. "We wept not solely for the physical library, but for the very future itself." They did not merely incinerate paper, they consumed the soul, the knowledge, the very hope of humankind. Now, as the unvarnished truth of Alexandria's cataclysmic fire is painstakingly dragged from the concealing shadows by the relentless efforts of AI, we perceive, with chilling clarity, the brutal reality of unchecked power and the devastating cost of meticulously controlling information. This was not merely the tragic loss of a magnificent library. It served as a dire warning concerning the inherent dangers of absolute, unchecked control over truth itself. The scrolls that tragically transformed into ash in Alexandria unequivocally prove a painful, timeless truth. History is invariably written by the triumphant victors, and genuine knowledge is, without exception, always perceived as a formidable threat to the maintenance of absolute power. In the ancient writings, painstakingly revived by AI, the Library of Alexandria is no longer just a tragic, forlorn ruin. It transcends its physical form, becoming a potent symbol of the profound cruelty of those who would willingly incinerate the future itself merely to preserve their fleeting dominance. And from within the haunting ashes, one final, poignant message continues to echo, a whisper emanating from the lips of Alexandria's forgotten scholars, a desperate plea, a solemn warning we are morally bound not to ignore. Protect knowledge, it implores, for when it is irrevocably lost, darkness will endure forever. Egypt's golden facade, the grim price of immortality. Beneath the scorching, unforgiving desert sands, within the cold, enveloping shadows of Egypt's ancient tombs, lie secrets that humanity has, until now, never truly grasped or understood. Majestic pyramids, mysterious burial chambers, and meticulously stone-carved texts meticulously preserve the enduring memories of a civilization consumed by an obsessive fascination with the afterlife and the relentless, often brutal, pursuit of immortality. Yet, when artificial intelligence finally achieved the unprecedented feat of decoding the ancient inscriptions, deliberately hidden deep within these very tombs, what emerged was not merely familiar, comforting mythology, but something far more profoundly terrifying, a brutal and unyielding belief system concerning the chilling, true cost of achieving eternal life. One of the very first texts AI painstakingly translated originated from the tomb of a high priest serving under Pharaoh Seti I. This chilling discovery unveiled a ritual, once performed in absolute and profound secrecy, that sent shivers down the spines of researchers. for the pharaoh's soul to attain perpetual existence. The text revealed, the vital blood of the living must inextricably merge with the mummified flesh. The inscription continued with gruesome specificity. The heart of the living, while still vigorously beating, must be torn out. That very blood is the sole doorway through the chasm of death. As AI delved even deeper into Egypt's subterranean tombs, the horrifying revelations only intensified. A series of inscriptions, meticulously recovered from the tomb of Pharaoh Ramses II, vividly described a recurring, macabre blood ritual involving living human sacrifices, ruthlessly compelled into their horrific deaths. Each year, on the night when the moon's light completely vanishes, the inscription chillingly dictated, 20 living souls shall be offered. Their blood will meticulously cleanse the pharaoh's lifeless corpse, thereby awakening his soul for an eternity beyond. The horror, it became terrifyingly clear, resided not only in the unspeakable act itself, but in the chillingly passive manner in which society had normalized and accepted these rituals as unequivocally necessary, indeed, even sacred. AI-recovered texts unveiled a deeply disturbing reality. The unfortunate victims were frequently slaves, helpless prisoners, or innocent civilians clandestinely kidnapped under the shroud of night, never to be seen again. One particular inscription, unearthed from Queen Nefertari's tomb, sent shockwaves reverberating across the world. It recounted a heartbreaking tale. They came in the dead of night and ruthlessly took my son. The lament continued, revealing the brutal enforcement of silence. I was explicitly forbidden to cry or even to search for him. It was chillingly conveyed that it was considered an honor to offer our blood so that the queen might live forever. The resurrected inscriptions, painstakingly brought back to light from Egypt's ancient tomb walls, unveiled a chilling and unsettling belief system. Eternal life, it was revealed, was not a serene, gentle afterlife, but rather a state relentlessly fueled by the vital blood and spiritual energy forcibly extracted from the living. AI uncovered even more terrifying lines in a hidden tomb discreetly located near the fabled Valley of the Kings. When Pharaoh dies, the text revealed, not only must blood be spilled, but the closest and most loyal servants must be buried alive, so their very souls may serve him eternally in the next world. Other inscriptions echoed the profound agony and despair of those ruthlessly forced to accompany the pharaoh in death, creating ghostly, sorrowful whispers that seemed to reverberate through the millennia. We were buried alive in an endless, suffocating darkness. Our souls are irrevocably trapped for all time. The chilling paradox was stark. Eternal life for Pharaoh is, for us, an eternal hell. Before the advent of AI, these ancient rites were viewed through the benign lens of cultural mythology. But now, the chilling and unvarnished truth has emerged. The ancient Egyptians profoundly believed that immortality could only be attained through excruciating pain, profound sacrifice, and the ultimate price of death. As AI tirelessly explored further, it unveiled the chilling clarity of intent that permeated among Egypt's elite. Pharaohs, priests, and rulers knew precisely the gruesome nature of their actions. In one particular text, meticulously reconstructed from the tomb of a priest named Imhotep, the profound deception was laid agonizingly bare. The common people must never, ever know the truth, the text chillingly commanded. We meticulously crafted the illusion that the afterlife is a realm of profound peace, but we, in our hidden knowledge, understand that it is meticulously constructed from blood, unyielding suffering, and the ultimate reality of death. With the invaluable assistance of AI, the world now comprehends the grim, horrifying secrets meticulously buried beneath the gleaming golden pyramids and the sacred tombs. What was once universally admired as a majestic and awe-inspiring civilization now appears in a far colder, more unsettling light. A society that unequivocally believed human life could be ruthlessly sacrificed to attain immortal dreams. And when we stand before Egypt's towering pyramids today, perhaps the sense of profound awe will be inextricably mixed with something colder, a haunting and unsettling knowledge that thousands of tormented souls still whisper, their agony echoing from the depths below. These ancient inscriptions are not merely faded echoes from a distant past. They serve as potent, timeless warnings. Beneath every silent step taken within the tombs of kings and queens lies a profound and unsettling question. How far are we, in our own desperate ambition, willing to go to live forever? Immortality, once the coveted dream of gods, tragically devolved into a nightmare built upon the immense suffering of others. The ancient texts, painstakingly revived by AI, offer not just historical accounts, but a chilling prophecy. A final, resonant message rises from the encroaching shadows, meticulously penned by a forgotten voice from the distant past. Protect the living, for in the relentless, often ruthless, pursuit of eternity, we have irrevocably buried our humanity. The unforgiving sands of Egypt still hold their myriad secrets. But now, at long last, we are finally beginning to hear them. Harappan desolation, the echo of self-destruction. Over 4,000 years ago, along the life-giving banks of the Indus River, a brilliant and highly advanced civilization once flourished. The Harappan civilization, also known as the Indus Valley Civilization, is widely regarded as one of humanity's earliest and most sophisticated urban societies. It meticulously constructed grand cities, boasting astonishingly advanced architecture, intricate drainage systems, and a thriving way of life that endured, with remarkable resilience, for many centuries. But then, abruptly, around 1900 BC, this once flourishing civilization inexplicably vanished, as if it had been completely wiped from the very annals of history overnight. What transpired in those final desperate days? For years, this perplexing question was met only with vague, speculative theories, cataclysmic natural disasters, prolonged and devastating droughts, or overwhelming invasions. Yet, when artificial intelligence finally achieved the monumental feat of deciphering the ancient Harappan script, texts once mournfully considered lost forever began to narrate a profoundly different and far more terrifying story. Clay tablets, long summarily dismissed as meaningless or purely administrative, now, under the piercing gaze of AI, vividly revealed a haunting portrait of a society inexorably collapsing under the crushing weight of brutal civil war and a pervasive, deadly plague. One particular tablet, meticulously translated by AI from the ancient city of Mohenjo-daro, chillingly described the very beginning of their end. This year's harvest did not arrive. It stated with stark simplicity, "The river has dried to a trickle. The wells stand empty. Families grow desperately hungry. They mercilessly blame one another. And now, they begin to brutally fight." Other meticulously recovered tablets painted an even darker and more brutal picture. Once prosperous and vibrant cities had devolved into horrifying, blood-soaked battlefields. A tablet from Harappa read with chilling clarity, "Bodies lie strewn across the streets. Those who were once brothers now turn on each other with savage fury, fighting over the last precious drops of water and meager scraps of food." But devastating civil war was not the sole catastrophe to befall them. As relentless violence consumed the besieged cities, a deadly and insidious plague emerged from the shadows. A recovered text from Dalavira meticulously recorded the horrifying outbreak. "No one knows where the sickness originated," it lamented. "Those afflicted burned with a consuming fever, their skin covered in grotesque sores. Death came swiftly and without mercy." The inscription revealed their desperate, futile attempts. "We desperately tried to isolate them, but the disease spread with terrifying rapidity." Another tablet from Mohenjo-daro vividly described the grim aftermath. "There are not enough of us remaining to bury the dead," it stated with profound despair. Corpses were unceremoniously thrown into the river, but the river, in its cruel irony, was dry. The unforgiving sun scorched the decaying bodies, and the sickness spread even further. A final, desperate lament concluded, "The gods have utterly abandoned us." The AI reconstructed text unequivocally revealed a dual catastrophe, war and disease, relentlessly crushing the Harappan world in a spiraling descent of utter destruction. One of the most profoundly heartbreaking discoveries was a desperate plea from a Harappan ruler, meticulously penned and dispatched to neighboring cities. "We have no living souls left to resist," the ruler's anguished words cried out. "The sickness kills faster than any sword." The desperate plea continued, "Please come to our aid, or tomorrow you will fall into the same inescapable darkness as we have." But that desperate call for succor was, tragically, never answered. AI translated a subsequent tablet, revealing that the neighboring cities, too, were overwhelmed by their own impending doom. "We dispatched messengers for aid," it stated with a sense of futility. None returned. The chilling realization followed. Perhaps there is no one left to help. Everyone is dying. All are fading into the dark. The once vibrant and bustling cities of Harappa fell into an eerie, profound silence. Empty streets, crumbling, ruined homes, and no voices left to utter a sound. In a final letter, meticulously reconstructed by AI, an ordinary citizen left a haunting, poignant message. "I write this," the citizen penned, "so someone in the distant future may understand how we lived and how we ultimately died. We were once a great city, but we mercilessly killed each other, and the plague, in its insatiable hunger, devoured us whole. This is our end." And none remained to recount the tragic story. Thanks to the illuminating power of AI, the final, desperate days of the Harappan civilization are no longer shrouded in mystery. They did not vanish solely due to the impersonal forces of nature. They tore themselves apart through internal warfare, and were utterly extinguished by the relentless march of plague. The grim lesson of Harappa is not merely a tragic tale of an ancient people. It stands as a profound and urgent warning. It speaks volumes about what transpires when a society descends into unbridled chaos, when paralyzing fear ruthlessly turns people against one another, and when devastating disease spreads with a horrifying rapidity that far outpaces human compassion. As we cast our gaze upon our sprawling modern cities, we are compelled to ask ourselves, are we truly different from them? Or have we simply, as yet, not faced the same unyielding challenges they confronted? The people of Harappa naively believed their cities would endure forever. But they were tragically mistaken. Their civilization is gone, utterly vanished, but their chilling warning continues to echo like a cold whisper from the distant, silent past. Do not forget us. Do not repeat us. And if we fail to listen, one day our cities may vanish just as theirs did. Babylon's curse, the inevitable fall of pride. Babylon, a name that resonates through the corridors of history like a legend, once stood as the most magnificent and overwhelmingly prosperous capital of the ancient world. Strategically situated along the fertile Euphrates River, it served as an undisputed epicenter of power, immeasurable wealth, and profound culture. Its famed hanging gardens, opulent palaces, and immense riches collectively transformed Babylon into the very embodiment of glory and absolute dominion. Yet, within that dazzling brilliance, an insidious curse silently began to germinate, meticulously sowing the very seeds of its inevitable collapse. When artificial intelligence first embarked upon the monumental task of deciphering the ancient cuneiform tablets recovered from Babylon, a far darker and more chilling truth began to emerge from behind its shimmering golden curtain. These archaic inscriptions, once benignly regarded as harmless administrative records, abruptly transformed into crystal-clear warnings about the dire, inescapable consequences of unchecked pride and profound moral decay. One of the inaugural tablets, meticulously translated by AI, discovered within the hallowed confines of the Temple of Marduk, Babylon's supreme deity, unlocked the first ominous gate into this hidden darkness. Babylon is slowly but irrevocably losing its very soul, the inscription lamented. The kings have utterly forgotten the gods. The wealthy mercilessly exploit the poor. Morality is trampled ruthlessly underfoot. The chilling prophecy concluded. Judgment will descend swiftly and without mercy. As AI delved ever deeper into the labyrinthine texts, it uncovered terrifying prophecies, meticulously penned by Babylonian priests and seers, detailing the city's grim fate. one particular tablet from the reign of King Belshazzar, who presided over Babylon during its final, desperate days, vividly captured the sheer scale of divine warning. The king shamelessly drank from goblets brazenly stolen from sacred temples. The text condemned. He callously laughed at the gnawing hunger of the poor, even as homes rotted in pervasive depravity and incest. The chilling pronouncement followed. The gods shall utterly abandon Babylon. Darkness will consume the city whole. The subsequent tablets unequivocally revealed that these solemn warnings were entirely disregarded. Babylon's elite continued their indulgent descent into unchecked decadence, while the common people languished in abject starvation. One AI-recovered text starkly exposed the profound social decay. The wealthy feast day and night, callously discarding food, it observed. While helpless children perish in the streets, pride has blinded them all. The tragic conclusion. None heeded the voices of the gods any longer. Then, precisely as foretold, catastrophe struck with brutal finality. One clay tablet from King Belshazzar's very own palace vividly described the cataclysmic night Babylon ultimately fell to the Persian army, led by the formidable Cyrus the Great. The Babylonians were utterly intoxicated in celebration. The text recounted. The city gates were left carelessly ajar in their arrogant hubris. The enemy, with cunning stealth, crept in like shadows. When the people finally awoke, the streets ran crimson with blood. Even more chilling were the records left by surviving priests, vividly describing their utter helplessness, as everything they had painstakingly constructed crumbled before their very eyes. We watched the city burn, its flames reaching towards the heavens. They lamented. The king fled in vain, his palaces transformed into raging infernos. The grim realization struck them. We remembered the ancient prophecies and understood that it was our overweening pride that had utterly destroyed Babylon. AI's translations made it unequivocally clear. The gods had not abandoned Babylon. The people, through their arrogance and corruption, had tragically abandoned their gods. One tablet from the Temple of Ishtar stated it plainly and unequivocally. We were once the most beloved city of the gods, but we betrayed them. We chose fleeting power, shimmering gold, and transient pleasure over profound reverence. Now Babylon is nothing but a city of the dead. Even after its catastrophic fall, a haunting curse was whispered and passed among Babylon's desperate survivors. An AI unearthed the chilling words. Whoever rebuilds Babylon shall die in fire and blood. Whoever revives pride shall face ruin 100-fold. Babylon stands as the ultimate, chilling lesson of human arrogance. Babylon's downfall was not solely caused by natural disaster or external foreign invasion. It was utterly destroyed from within, by unchecked excess, by overwhelming ego, and by the profound loss of its moral compass. Thanks to AI, we now perceive Babylon's final, desperate days with chilling clarity like never before. The ancient prophecies still whisper urgently to us today, a timeless warning: no matter how mighty or prosperous a society may become, the very moment it abandons humility and virtue, its downfall becomes an absolute certainty, inevitable and unyielding. The curse of Babylon is not merely a tale from a bygone era. It is a potent warning, a message meticulously etched in stone, now echoing through the relentless march of time. Pride is the first, insidious step toward utter destruction. Babylon is gone, utterly vanished. But its curse and the dire consequences of arrogance still linger, haunting humanity with the most painful and enduring lesson history has ever offered. The Etruscan obsession. Power forged in fear and blood. Before the formidable rise of Rome to ultimately dominate the entire Italian peninsula, there flourished a mysterious and undeniably powerful civilization. The Etruscans. From the 8th to the 3rd century BC, the Etruscans meticulously constructed mighty cities, breathtaking architectural marvels, and cultivated a profoundly wealthy culture steeped in strange and often brutal religious rituals. And yet, with an abrupt and baffling suddenness, they mysteriously vanished, leaving behind little more than enigmatic tombs and a bizarre writing system that stubbornly resisted all attempts at decipherment. To this very day, The Etruscan language persists as one of the greatest enigmas in the annals of history. But now, with the unprecedented assistance of artificial intelligence, what were once incomprehensible texts are, at long last, beginning to unveil some of the most horrifying secrets history has ever meticulously concealed. From the very first text painstakingly decoded by AI, archaeologists were struck by something profoundly chilling. The Etruscans were no ordinary civilization. They were consumed by an obsessive preoccupation with death, with unbridled power, and with brutal rituals meticulously designed to preserve the absolute authority of their noble class. One particular stone tablet, discovered within an ancient tomb in the city of Tarquinia, when translated by AI, described a terrifying funeral ritual with gruesome detail. When the king ultimately dies, his loyal servants are to be immediately killed, the inscription dictated. Their blood shall be poured lavishly over his corpse so that their souls may continue to serve him in the world beyond. But this grim revelation was merely the prologue. Further AI translations systematically uncovered even more gruesome and deeply disturbing funeral customs. In another tomb located in Cairo, a text vividly detailed an unspeakable ritual with chilling precision. Those chosen to die alongside the deceased are brought directly next to the body, it recounted. While their hearts still vigorously beat, the priest cuts out the living heart with a blade. The chilling purpose. The flowing, hot blood awakens the soul of the dead. Each successive translation unearthed even darker and more unsettling truths. A small stone tablet found near Orvieto recounted yet another terrifying practice. Prisoners of war and captured slaves lived in a state of constant, pervasive fear, the text revealed, knowing they could be ruthlessly sacrificed at any given moment to ensure a noble soul finds peace. Yet, what proves most profoundly disturbing is not merely the rituals themselves. It is, rather, the insidious manner in which the Etruscans manipulated these macabre practices to instill pervasive fear and relentlessly maintain absolute control. One AI-translated text, recovered from the tomb of a king named Lars Porsena, elucidated this chilling strategy with unnerving clarity. We maintain power, it declared, not only through overwhelming military might but through the pervasive fear instilled in the hearts of our people. The chilling objective. They must profoundly believe we control both their transient life and their ultimate death, through these horrific sacrificial and funerary practices. The Etruscans systematically constructed a society governed by absolute, unyielding fear. Another inscription from a tomb in Volterra, painstakingly decoded by AI, painted this image in sharp, disquieting detail. The people must perpetually live in fear, always, it commanded, for only fear ensures unwavering obedience. And even more chillingly, if not enough perish in the rituals, we will forcibly take more from families who dare to oppose us. Even more chillingly, AI reconstructions revealed that Etruscan priests and nobles deliberately sustained a state of perpetual warfare, all with the calculated objective of ensuring a constant, plentiful supply of human sacrifices. A decoded inscription from the tomb of a high priest in Veii brutally exposed this dark strategy. War must never cease, it dictated, for it is the sole means to provide enough prisoners for sacrifice. The profound consequence of peace. If peace comes, we lose the very power of fear. As these unsettling texts surfaced, a profound question began to coalesce in the minds of historians. Was it this insatiable obsession with fear and cruelty that ultimately sealed the Etruscans' doom? Did they, in their desperate and ruthless attempts to absolutely dominate their own people, inadvertently sow the very seeds of their own inevitable destruction? The final text translated from a site in the city of Chiusi may, perhaps, hold the answer. It recounts what appears to be a massive, cataclysmic revolt initiated by the oppressed populace. We could no longer endure this pervasive fear, the text proclaimed. The people rose up, consumed the temples in flames, and brutally slaughtered the priests who had relentlessly propagated horror for generations. Their desperate aim: we desired to end the terror once and for all. It was not foreign invaders or devastating natural disasters that ultimately brought down the Etruscan civilization. It was, instead, the violent backlash of their own tormented people. Driven to desperation by years of relentless dread, unimaginable suffering, and incessant bloodshed, the very fear they meticulously engineered to control others became their undeniable undoing. Today, when we stand before the quiet, ancient Etruscan tombs, now buried deep beneath the earth, we experience more than mere awe at the haunting beauty of a lost world. We feel the chilling embrace of a terrifying lesson: power maintained through pervasive fear invariably leads to utter ruin. A society that callously replaces trust with terror is one that, in its ultimate trajectory, inexorably consumes itself. What the Etruscans left behind is far more than just crumbling ruins and cryptic inscriptions. It is a profound warning, meticulously carved into stone and reverberating across millennia. A message that has miraculously survived longer than the civilization itself. Fear may be an undeniably powerful tool, but it is, fundamentally, a fragile foundation. No matter how robust the rituals, how unwavering the army's loyalty, or how deep the graves, when fear replaces genuine loyalty, collapse is an absolute certainty. Inevitable and unyielding. The Etruscans' greatest failure was not their inherent cruelty, but their arrogant belief that it would endure forever. They erroneously believed that fear was eternal. But history, in its relentless march, proved otherwise. The very people they oppressed, driven to their breaking point, learned to rise up. The temples they meticulously constructed to dominate were mercilessly reduced to ash. And the nobles who once ruled with an iron fist of terror became nameless skeletons, lost in the impenetrable darkness. The Etruscan voices, now painstakingly revived by AI, do not speak of past glory. They whisper of profound mistakes. They remind us, in a tone more somber than triumphant, that civilizations fall not solely from external forces but, more often, from within. When fear becomes the enforced law, rebellion becomes the inevitable answer. And so, as we listen to these ancient echoes, meticulously translated by the machines of today, we are left with one final, cold, and inescapable truth. The past is not silent. It warns. Delphi's buried prophecies, humanity's self-fulfilling doom, lying serenely on the mystical slopes of Mount Parnassus. The Temple of Delphi once reigned as the most renowned spiritual center of the entire ancient world. The ancient Greeks devoutly believed that within its hallowed confines, the prophecies delivered by the priestess Pythia were, in essence, the very voice of Apollo himself, meticulously guiding the future and inexorably shaping the destinies of kings, formidable generals, and ordinary people alike. Yet Delphi's widespread fame was not solely constructed upon the sheer magnificence and undeniable accuracy of its public prophecies. Hidden behind the widely known predictions meticulously recorded in history lay messages far more profoundly terrifying, intentionally interred deep beneath the earth for thousands of years. And now, for the first time in recorded history, these dark and unsettling revelations have been dragged into the illuminating light. Thanks to the unprecedented reconstructive and decoding powers of artificial intelligence. A small stone tablet, meticulously decoded by AI from the deepest, most secluded chamber beneath the Temple of Delphi, unveiled a message that once so profoundly terrified the ancient priests that they swore a solemn oath to forever conceal it. When the sun rises in the west, the chilling inscription began. When the relentless sea swallows the sprawling cities, when mankind descends into a brutal slaughter, driven by unbridled selfishness and insatiable greed, on that cataclysmic day, the world shall begin its inexorable end. Archaeologists were left utterly stunned as AI meticulously reconstructed the full, harrowing content of this haunting message. This astonishment arose not only because of its stark, apocalyptic tone, but also due to the desperate efforts of the Greeks to meticulously bury such prophecies, as if they profoundly feared that the mere knowledge of them would somehow cause them to irrevocably come true. Another meticulously recovered inscription, translated from a stone discovered within a hidden, secret room of the temple, sent even more chilling tremors down the researchers' spines. Let no one ever know these things, it warned with ominous clarity. For knowledge is sometimes the treacherous gateway to ultimate collapse. The chilling philosophy continued. When mankind perceives the inevitable darkness lying ahead, it will hasten its own destruction to meet it with terrifying speed. These were not ordinary, run-of-the-mill predictions. They carried a terrifying and profound philosophy. The more humanity becomes aware of its dark and inescapable fate, the faster it will, paradoxically, move to fulfill it. AI's reconstruction of yet another stone from the temple's secret archive offered chilling insight into precisely why the ancient Greek priests chose to meticulously hide these grim messages. We chose to meticulously conceal this truth, they confessed. Not to deceive mankind, but because if they knew the terrifying darkness of their future, unbridled chaos would descend upon the world instantly. The pragmatic conclusion: the optimal path is to allow them to live in comforting hope and profound ignorance. One particularly chilling, meticulously recovered text described a specific future that the priests profoundly feared would come to pass if humanity stubbornly refused to change its trajectory. A time shall undoubtedly come, it foretold, when mankind commands powers far exceeding those of the gods themselves. The text continued with an eerie foresight. They will construct machines that think for them. But the dire warning followed. But those very machines will inevitably become the spear that pierces the very heart of humanity when humans foolishly surrender control over the world's ultimate fate to them. This passage sent shockwaves reverberating through the entire scholarly world, shaking it to its very core. This was not merely for its poetic sense of impending doom, but because it so explicitly and clearly referred to artificial intelligence, the very tool we are, at this precise moment, employing to rediscover these long-lost warnings. The deeper the AI probed into these ancient inscriptions, the more clearly a terrifying truth inexorably emerged. The ancient Greeks may have possessed a deeply unsettling understanding that humanity itself is its own greatest enemy. Their concerted efforts to meticulously bury these messages were not merely a means to protect society from despair, but a final, desperate act in the face of a bitter, unvarnished truth they dared not utter aloud. One final text, meticulously recovered from Delphi, vivid and deeply personal, was a painful message penned by an elderly priest named Agathon, the last individual to document these hidden prophecies. I fervently pray that one day someone wise enough will comprehend what I commit to writing today, he began. Tell mankind this: power and ambition are a treacherous, double-edged blade, he warned. They will elevate you to unimaginable heights and then mercilessly cast you into the deepest abyss. The profound final caution. Remember, the end does not originate from nature or the gods. It stems directly from human greed and profound pride. Now that AI has unearthed these long-interred messages from Delphi, we not only gain new, invaluable insight into ancient Greek wisdom, but we are left with a bone-chilling awareness of just how serious and dire these ancient warnings truly were. Delphi, once universally perceived as a shining beacon of hope and divine guidance, turns out to have also been the somber keeper of the most horrifying predictions concerning the ultimate fate of humanity. The ancient Greeks meticulously hid these words, perhaps as a final, desperate attempt to avert a future they profoundly believed was inevitable if mankind stubbornly refused to change its path. But now the seal has been irrevocably broken, and with its shattering comes a profound question we can no longer evade. Are we truly ready to listen and genuinely change? Or will we stubbornly continue down the same destructive path, relentlessly repeating the same egregious mistakes, despite every solemn warning history has so painstakingly left behind? These prophecies were never meant to remain hidden forever. They patiently awaited a moment when we might, finally, truly understand them. That moment may be now, or it may be irrevocably slipping through our grasp once again. The voices of Delphi still echo, not as mere relics of a bygone past, but as urgent, pressing messages for the present. Their warnings are not shrouded in riddles, they are direct, deliberate, and chillingly clear. when man foolishly creates what he cannot control. The prophecy states, when knowledge is weaponized, when hope is brutally replaced by arrogant hubris, the collapse shall not arrive as a surprise. It will be the only possible, inevitable outcome. These were not divine punishments foretold from on high. They were profound consequences, logical, fundamentally human, and terrifying in their chilling certainty. Delphi did not speak of wrath emanating from Olympus. It warned of something far closer, far more personal, and infinitely more dangerous: ourselves. Mankind will construct its own doom, brick by painful brick, code by relentless code. What Delphi feared most was not a prophecy being fulfilled, but a prophecy tragically accelerated by the very hands of those who heard it. Now, as we stand with these ancient words, meticulously resurrected by machines we ourselves created, we are brutally forced to make a profound choice. Do we heed the solemn voices of the past? Or do we silence them once more, stubbornly choosing ignorance over fundamental change? The forgotten prophecies of Delphi are no longer forgotten. They are here, with us, clear, terrifying, and uncomfortably close to our present reality. The question is no longer what the future holds. The question is whether we possess the courage and fortitude to fundamentally change it. Atlantis. The echo of forbidden power and erasure. Perhaps no lost civilization has captivated and confounded humanity quite like Atlantis. Ever since the philosopher Plato first alluded to this mythical island in his dialogues, Timaeus and Critias, thousands of scholars, archaeologists, and dreamers have tirelessly scoured the oceans for any trace of its existence. Yet, all have invariably returned empty-handed, as if Atlantis had never existed at all, or, more chillingly, as if it had been deliberately and meticulously erased from human memory. What is truly strange, however, is that traces of Atlantis do not solely appear in Plato's foundational writings. When artificial intelligence was meticulously trained to decode ancient texts from Egypt, Minoan Crete, Sumer, and even Etruria, it uncovered spine-chilling consistencies. Each one, in its own unique language, referenced a magnificent empire situated within the ocean, once endowed with immense and formidable power, only to ultimately fall in a catastrophic, cataclysmic disaster. One ancient passage from the Temple of Sais in Egypt, painstakingly reconstructed by AI from symbols that had nearly faded into dust, reads with an eerie prescience. They ruled the waves with unchallenged dominion. Gold, silver, and radiant light covered their majestic citadels. But when their hearts swelled with arrogance, and they brazenly stole the very energy of the gods, the sea rose up, vengeful and inexorable, and all was swallowed by profound silence. AI also meticulously uncovered a series of texts from the Minoan civilization, which shares deep and intriguing ties with the Atlantis legend, describing a strange and incomprehensible form of technology, utterly unheard of for that ancient era. An ancient inscription from the island of Thera, modern-day Santorini, reads with chilling clarity, "They held in their hands a light not born of the sun. They shaped stone and metal with their very will." But the dire warning followed. But that power was never meant for mankind. When they brazenly crossed the line, the earth convulsed, the skies roared with fury, and the unforgiving ocean claimed everything. This raises a deeply unsettling question. What kind of energy could possibly grant such immense power and simultaneously possess the destructive capacity to obliterate an entire civilization from the face of the earth? Modern scholars, for a long time, benignly dismissed these accounts as purely metaphorical. However, AI, by meticulously compiling and cross-referencing ancient records from diverse cultures, reconstructed this chilling idea with unsettling clarity. In ancient Sumerian writings, there is a distinct mention of a force ominously referred to as the Black Fire, an abstract, formidable power said to be wielded by the gods themselves to either create or destroy entire worlds. One clay tablet from the city of Eridu explicitly states, "The ones from the sea brazenly stole the black fire." The text continues with a profound warning. "They erroneously believed themselves equal to the gods. but the black fire never serves an arrogant heart. The shocking and undeniable parallels between Egyptian, Minoan, and Sumerian texts strongly suggest that Atlantis may not be a solitary myth, a mere fabrication of ancient minds, but rather a collective, deeply ingrained memory, perhaps distorted, perhaps deliberately obscured, or perhaps even intentionally forgotten for reasons yet unknown. AI also meticulously reconstructed a passage carved into stone on the island of Malta, long believed to have served as a crucial transit point between Atlantis and ancient Europe. When the mighty kingdom in the ocean succumbed to utter darkness, the inscription recounted, a colossal column of water, taller than the highest mountains, swallowed everything without mercy. The text described the futile escape. We ran desperately, but the sea relentlessly reclaimed both blood and stone. Only memory and profound silence remained, piece by painful piece. AI began painting a clearer, albeit terrifying, picture. Atlantis was a civilization that had attained staggering heights in both technology and raw power. But it had, in its relentless ascent, tragically transgressed the fundamental boundaries of nature and morality. Unchecked pride coupled with the catastrophic misuse of a forbidden energy, possibly some primordial, incomprehensible force, or something modern humans still utterly fail to comprehend, ultimately led to total annihilation. A haunting detail from an ancient text on Crete, miraculously brought back to vivid life by AI, suggests that the people of Atlantis had, in fact, been forewarned. The stars shifted their celestial paths, the text noted with ominous observation. The sky glowed in ways never before witnessed. It was the definitive, final sign. But they stubbornly continued on, erroneously believing they could not fall. And when the cataclysmic disaster ultimately struck, it was far more than a simple flood. According to descriptions in ancient texts meticulously analyzed by AI, it was a cascading chain of interconnected geological and climatic events. Devastating earthquakes, furious volcanic eruptions, and colossal tsunamis, all occurring in terrifyingly swift succession. As if nature itself had risen up to exact a monumental debt that should never, ever have been incurred. A final inscription, discovered within a ruined temple in Egypt and painstakingly translated by AI, offers a cold and ancient warning. If mankind ever again discovers the forbidden light, it implores, remember Atlantis. Not all light leads to life. Some lights lead directly into the abyss. The disappearance of Atlantis may not have been merely a myth, a fantastical tale, but rather the deliberate erasure of a collective memory, a painful, enduring memory of what inevitably transpires when humans foolishly believe they are gods. Today, as AI meticulously helps us stitch together the fractured fragments of that forgotten past, the most terrifying realization is not that Atlantis once grandly existed, but precisely why it was so thoroughly erased from history. Someone, or something, ensured that humanity would forget the catastrophic consequences, as if that very act of erasure was itself a final, desperate attempt to shield the future from the agonizing prospect of repeating it. But the profound question now confronting us is, have we truly learned anything? Or are we relentlessly racing toward a new, terrifying version of Atlantis? One that will not tragically sink beneath the waves, but will instead collapse under the crushing weight of our unchecked pride and boundless, often reckless, technology? The deeper AI delves, the more it reveals, not just crumbling ruins or ancient fables, but encoded memories from civilizations long vanished. Warnings meticulously etched in stone and clay, whispered in a forgotten tongue. Warnings that implore us, do not awaken what was once sealed away. The price of forbidden knowledge is never paid in gold, but invariably in blood. In every instance, Atlantis is remembered not as a utopian paradise, but as a profound fall, a cautionary warning, not a wondrous marvel. And perhaps that is the greatest tragedy of all, that we fundamentally misunderstood the story. We romanticized Atlantis, envisioning it as a paradise tragically lost, when in unvarnished truth, it was a punishment grimly fulfilled, not by gods, not by the earth, but by ourselves. They erroneously believed they could conquer the very forces that birthed them. They arrogantly believed the formidable sea could be tamed. The celestial stars commanded. But in the end, the profound silence was their chilling answer. Now, as the ancient voices return through machines of our own creation, we stand at a crossroads eerily similar to theirs, possessing our own light not derived from the sun, harboring our own insatiable ambitions to surpass the gods, and confronting our own warnings already meticulously inscribed, not in clay or stone, but in the ethereal realm of data and code. The memory of Atlantis was erased, not because it was false, but because it was too profoundly true. The question is no longer whether Atlantis existed. The question is, are we, in our modern hubris, tragically becoming Atlantis once again? Ancient China's hidden annals, Persia's erasure, and the price of power. When people speak of ancient China, they often conjure images of a venerable and brilliant civilization, magnificent city walls, radiant empires, dynasties spanning millennia, and a rich tapestry of profound philosophy. But beneath this dazzling and glorious image lies a shadowed, far more unsettling history. One indelibly marked by ruthless purges, horrifying genocides, and uncomfortable truths that have long remained untold. That is, until artificial intelligence began its meticulous deciphering of the cryptic oracle bones and the deeply buried bamboo scrolls, once mournfully believed lost to the relentless march of time. For centuries, the intricate scripts meticulously carved into turtle shells and animal bones, famously known as oracle bone script, along with the ancient bamboo slips, served as invaluable gateways into the foundational Shang and Zhou dynasties. Yet, the vast majority of these remain stubbornly indecipherable due to their profound symbolic complexity and a grammatical system that had been nearly, if not entirely, lost to history. Now, however, thanks to AI's unparalleled superior data processing capabilities, these fragmented records are, at long last, beginning to speak with chilling clarity. And what they reveal is not merely historical narrative, but unadulterated horror. One particularly chilling record, painstakingly decoded by AI from the Shang dynasty during the reign of King Wu Ding, and meticulously carved into a buffalo shoulder blade, utterly shatters the romanticized myth of the benevolent Son of Heaven. Each month, the inscription brutally states, 50 people are chosen for sacrifice. If the harvest fails, the number doubles. The warning for dissenters is stark. Those who disobey are burned alive at the city gate. Even more disturbing, AI uncovered further inscriptions that not only highlight widespread human sacrifice but meticulously document systematic internal cleansing campaigns, ruthlessly carried out with chilling regularity within the imperial palace and across conquered regions. One oracle bone chillingly reads, "When whispers of rebellion arise, the entire family is executed. The method of silencing is barbaric. Women and children are buried alive with the patriarch to silence their spirits." These texts were never, ever integrated into official chronicles. They were deliberately buried, summarily labeled as insignificant or incomprehensible. But AI has meticulously connected them, forming a dark and unsparing portrait of how the very first dynasties maintained their absolute power through the currency of blood, the pervasive grip of fear, and the unyielding demand for absolute loyalty. During the subsequent Qin dynasty, ancient bamboo slips recovered from the region of Xiangyang reveal even darker, more profound truths. A text, penned just before Qin Shi Huang's monumental unification of China, was translated by AI with chilling precision. "Those who reject legalism shall be buried alive." The policy extended beyond dissenters. Books are burned, but the very memory of scholars must also be erased. The decree underscored its ruthless logic. He who remembers the past is an enemy of the new empire. This, as AI confirmed, is the earliest surviving account of the infamous burning of books and the brutal burying of scholars. Undeniably one of the most controversial events in all of Chinese history. But AI unearthed an even more horrifying detail on another bamboo slip. It wasn't merely scholars who faced this grim fate. Anyone who taught, recorded old scripts, or refused to swear absolute loyalty shall be buried alive at the borders. Reconstructed documents reveal that over 4,000 people were executed in a single, brutal purification campaign that lasted less than 3 months under the Qing. The sanitized version described in official history is, chillingly, merely the tip of a vast iceberg. One meticulously wrapped in a deceptive cloak of righteousness and morality. A bamboo record from the Western Han Dynasty, containing a confidential edict to border officials, further exposed the true, brutal nature of the ruling apparatus. Anyone with blood ties to families who opposed the former dynasty must be irrevocably erased from the registry. The decree continued with chilling generational punishment. Their descendants may not hold office nor learn to read, if violated, execution without trial. This wasn't merely about political maneuvering or warfare. Ancient texts revealed horrifying genocidal policies, meticulously targeting minority ethnic groups, which AI traced to regions like Yunnan, Sichuan, and Guizhou. A bamboo slip discovered in Bashu chillingly recorded. 300 people of the Man tribe were driven into a fire cave for refusing tribute. The grim terms of survival were clear. Survivors must change their surnames, learn the Han tongue, and bow to the emperor's statue each morning. Those who refuse, kill them. These groundbreaking discoveries reframed Chinese history not merely as a grand, glorious epic, but also as a protracted saga of systemic political violence, brutal forced assimilation, and calculated cultural erasure, ruthlessly executed across numerous dynasties. Most profoundly haunting of all was a bamboo slip, tragically buried with an exiled scholar from the Eastern Han era. It bore a bitter, poignant inscription. "I write the truth, but no one will read it." The scholar lamented the fate of truth-tellers. "Those who knew are dead or waiting their turn." The court does not fear the people. It fears memory. Now, as AI resurrects these long-silenced memories, we begin to comprehend that the past was not forgotten by accident. It was deliberately and purposefully erased. The ancient scripts, once dismissed as mere indecipherable symbols, now speak as quiet cries emanating from the profound depths of history. From souls brutally silenced, systematically erased, and forcibly torn from collective memory. And perhaps the most terrifying aspect is not what AI has so painstakingly uncovered, but the profound silence that endured for thousands of years before its revelations. A chilling silence in which humanity, for reasons of comfort or fear, chose not to ask the piercing questions. For ages, the grand narrative of Chinese civilization glowed with an almost artificial glory. But beneath that carefully curated light, buried deep within the very bones and scrolls that once told the story, was a meticulous record of brutality, too dangerous to preserve and too haunting to ignore. These revelations do not, in any way, tarnish Chinese history. They complete it. They narrate the stories of those who were never meant to be remembered, those brutally burned alive for their dissenting thoughts, mercilessly erased for their heritage, and silenced for their inconvenient knowledge. They were not celebrated heroes in official historical books. They were, in the eyes of power, profound threats. And yet, through AI's newfound voice, they now speak again. From shattered bone fragments and brittle bamboo strips, the long-forgotten now return. Their messages are not bitter laments. They are stark warnings. A civilization that fears memory will one day be forgotten. Truth buried is truth multiplied. The entrenched power structures feared memory far more than open rebellion. Because memory, once truly awakened, cannot be silenced again. As we listen to these ancient voices, now reawakened by machines of our own creation, we are compelled to ask, what else have we chosen to forget? And more importantly, what still remains deeply buried, patiently waiting to be heard? These are not merely historical records. They are unfinished conversations. And now, at long last, we are finally listening. The Hittite implosion, when weaponized plague turned inward. In the heart of ancient Anatolia, modern-day Turkey, the Hittites once meticulously forged an empire that rivaled the formidable might of Egypt and Babylon. They were renowned as formidable warriors of iron, cunning diplomats, and stood among the very first civilizations to master iron working, a technological edge they skillfully employed to expand their vast influence. At their zenith, they controlled the northern Mesopotamian region and even clashed head-to-head with the pharaohs in the legendary and pivotal Battle of Kadesh. But as swiftly as the Hittites rose to power, they vanished just as suddenly and mysteriously. Within a mere few decades around 1200 BC, the entire formidable Hittite imperial structure utterly collapsed. Cities were abandoned, majestic palaces were consumed by fire, and an entire rich culture was nearly erased from collective memory. Only when AI began its meticulous decoding of ancient stone inscriptions, meticulously written in Hittite, one of the oldest Indo-European languages, did the final, tragic chapters of their story begin to emerge. And what they revealed was unlike anything recorded in traditional historical accounts. A stone tablet, painstakingly excavated near Hattusa, the Hittite capital, when translated by AI, offered a radically different and deeply unsettling beginning to the narrative of their downfall. Power rotted from within, the inscription chillingly stated. Princes conspired mercilessly against one another. Oaths solemnly sworn before the gods were brazenly broken, and the southern winds brought a sickness with no name. This inscription pointed not only to profound internal fractures within the royal family but also to a much greater, more insidious threat, a devastating plague, something rarely, if ever, mentioned in official historical records. Other tablets, discovered at Alakahoik and Yazilikiah, brought this grim image into even sharper, more terrifying focus. AI uncovered a chilling description of precisely how the disease spread, and even more disturbingly, how it was deliberately utilized. The priest of the Temple of Tuhuna issued a chilling order. Place the infected dead into the enemy's water wells. The rationale was cold and calculated. They will die from within, and our warriors need not raise a spear. This may represent one of the earliest surviving records of disease being deliberately used as a biological weapon, not merely a natural disaster. The plague was weaponized, nurtured, transmitted, and ruthlessly deployed by the Hittites themselves to annihilate their enemies. But in the end, they became irrevocably trapped in the very insidious web of destruction they had so cunningly spun. A tablet from the temple of the goddess Ishtar in Arena, meticulously restored by AI, documented the widespread terror that gripped the empire during its final, agonizing days. There is no safe place left, the text lamented. The plague no longer differentiates between friend or foe. Even those who cast powerful spells now perish like commoners. The gruesome symptoms were clear. Blood flows from the eyes and the soul leaves before the body hits the ground. The insidious disease began at the distant borders, slowly but inexorably creeping toward Hattusa. But instead of implementing measures to contain it, the Hittite court devolved into destructive cycles of blame and relentless political purging. A record from the royal archive, painstakingly reassembled by AI, stated, "The priests declared it divine punishment for the queen had violated the sacred rite. She was hanged before the altar." Yet the plague did not stop. This marked the tragic beginning of a wave of royal executions, swiftly followed by assassinations, brutal coups, and debilitating military infighting. One tablet even described King Suppiluliuma II, the last king of the Hittites, brutally murdering his own brother in a fit of paranoia. He falsely claimed his brother carried the southern curse. But chillingly, before the body had turned cold, the king himself began bleeding from his ears. It was the unmistakable sign of death. These stone inscriptions, meticulously decoded by AI, unequivocally revealed that the fall of the Hittites did not stem from a singular external enemy, either Egypt nor the northern tribes, but rather from within, pervasive betrayal, devastating plague, and profound moral collapse. One final inscription, hastily carved into the eastern wall of Hattusa's fortress, is believed to be the parting words of a surviving priest. "We used death to maintain power," he confessed. "But in the end death came for us." The final, desperate plea. "May the gods forgive, If they still remember the Hittites. Through the unfiltered lens of AI, the fall of the Hittites is no longer a tale of noble fate or capricious divine whim. It is a cold, hard lesson in the inherent dangers of ruthless power and the dire consequences of weaponizing nature itself. They did not fall in glorious battle. They imploded under the crushing weight of their own insatiable ambition, consumed by the very forces they erroneously believed they could control. And today, as we stand before the stone ruins of Hattusa, cracked, wind-worn, yet hauntingly majestic, we must perceive more than fading beauty. We must hear the persistent whispers of a past that still urgently warns us. A civilization that trades wisdom for arrogance is already doomed. The Hittites erroneously believed themselves invincible, unshakable by the hand of man or the wrath of God. And yet they were defeated not by external warfare but by their own self-inflicted wounds. AI's discoveries shed new, unsettling light on the Hittite legacy. They were not simply victims of time or inexorable fate, but rather of choices. Choices made in the grip of fear, in an insatiable hunger for control, and in the dangerous illusion of divine immunity. They poisoned their enemies and, in a cruel twist of irony, themselves. They blamed their queen and their gods. They sacrificed their own, and were, in turn, sacrificed by history itself. What remains now are not just ruins, but records. Records that once lay dormant within stone, patiently waiting for a voice to decode them. And AI has done precisely that. From fragments of tablets once too fractured to read, a voice has returned. A voice that declares, "We were powerful. And we fell, not because we were weak, but because we forgot what power was truly meant to serve." As we continue to uncover the buried truths of ancient empires, the story of the Hittites stands as a chilling mirror to our own time. A civilization that toys with the delicate balance of nature, wages war with insidious disease, and ruthlessly silences its own in the name of perceived order will, eventually, be undone. Not by external enemies, but by the inevitable consequences of its own actions. And the echoes of Hattusa serve as a stark reminder: power is not eternal. But its mistakes, if unheeded, will be repeated. Angkor's silent judgment, faith, compassion, and collapse. Hidden deep within the vibrant, dense jungles of Cambodia, Angkor once stood as the beating heart of a glorious empire. There, towering stone structures pierced through the thick canopy, and magnificent temples like Angkor Wat, Bayon, and Ta Prohm eloquently narrated tales of profound spiritual power and divine authority. But behind this outward grandeur and undeniable magnificence lay a shadowed chapter that has never been fully revealed. For centuries, the sudden and perplexing collapse and subsequent disappearance of the Khmer Empire, once undeniably one of Southeast Asia's greatest civilizations, from its very core, remained an impenetrable mystery. However, recently, ancient Khmer inscriptions, once dismissed as meaningless and heavily weathered by the unforgiving hand of time, have been meticulously decoded by artificial intelligence. This breakthrough has unsealed the door into a darkness that history, in its selective memory, long chose to forget. One of the very first texts AI painstakingly reconstructed from the temple of Preah Khan did not contain hymns of peace or glorious tales of conquest, but rather prayers steeped in the chilling currency of blood. "You are the god of birth and the god of death," the prayer began. "We offer you the firstborn son so the rains may arrive precisely on time, and the harvest may not wither." Such inscriptions were, for a long time, summarily dismissed by scholars from the French colonial era, deemed too obscure or too inconsistent with the carefully constructed image of a radiant, benevolent religious civilization. But AI, through its extraordinary ability to analyze and cross-reference millions of complex symbols, meticulously pieced together a complete and terrifying picture. Human sacrifice was not a mere myth of the distant past. It was, in unvarnished truth, a central and integral part of ancient Khmer belief. From Phnom Kulen to Bandi Sray, scattered inscriptions made recurring reference to a ritual ominously known as Speen Mies, or the renewal of the land's blood. This macabre ceremony was meticulously performed during times of devastating disaster, or whenever the king profoundly believed the gods were angered by the populace. A text, painstakingly decoded by AI and discovered buried beneath a headless statue of Vishnu, described the ritual in chilling and graphic detail. 4 children were carefully chosen, none older than 8. It stated with cold precision. They were bound and buried beneath the 4 corners of the new temple. The chilling purpose. Their blood soaked the ground so the spirit of the gods might dwell in peace. A horrifying question inevitably follows. How many of Angkor's magnificent temples, how many sacred monuments, were meticulously constructed upon the lives of innocents, sacrificed in profound silence? The rituals of blood were not the sole unsettling truth AI uncovered. It also revealed an extreme and pervasive form of political control, meticulously built upon deeply ingrained religious fear. One inscription on the western corridor of Angkor Thom chillingly declared, "Those who do not believe in the power of the God King shall not be buried." The consequence for disbelievers was horrific. They shall be thrown into the forest for the jungle demons to tear apart so their souls may never find peace. A ruling system founded upon supernatural fear functioned seamlessly and effectively for centuries. The king was not merely the temporal ruler of the land. He was considered the living embodiment of the divine, the sacred bridge between heaven and earth. Doubting the king meant committing blasphemy against the gods, and death came swiftly, invariably followed by an eternal curse. One ancient record, meticulously etched deep into the walls of Banteay Sray Temple, chillingly linked Angkor's decline to one specific moment of perceived mercy. When the king refused the sacrifice out of compassion, the text recounted, drought stretched across 3 agonizing seasons. The people rose in rebellion, the dire spiritual consequence. The spirit of the gods left the city. Trees grew upon the rooftops. Blood dried on stone. Angkor has been silent since. AI meticulously compiled these fragments from dozens of temples across the vast Angkor complex and proposed a shocking hypothesis. The fall of the Khmer Empire did not originate from external warfare, but rather from a profound rupture in collective belief. When extreme religious tenets were challenged by nascent human compassion, and when blood rituals were no longer upheld by the royalty, the empire, unable to adapt, collapsed from within. One of the final inscriptions, poignantly carved into a fallen pillar in the jungle near Bingmalia, bears the voice of a lone sculptor who miraculously survived the tumultuous period. "I carved the gods for 40 years," he wrote with a touch of weariness. "But today I carved my own name into stone, not to pray, but to simply say I once existed. Today." As the majestic temple towers of Angkor rise gracefully through the dappled jungle sunlight, visitors still marvel at their ancient, enduring beauty. But beneath every weathered stone lie forgotten inscriptions, and every path carries the silent memory of souls never truly laid to rest. And AI, by reigniting light into these once dead characters, is forcing history to confront what it once deliberately buried. Could it be that the true price of greatness was always paid in blood? And if so, do we truly wish to know what else lies beneath those moss-covered, silent stones? Angkor's profound silence is not merely a testament to architectural decay. It is the echoing resonance of a broken contract, between kings and gods, between people and their deeply held beliefs. A silence earned not by external conquest, but by a civilization that, in its final throes, questioned the very rituals that had once defined its existence. As AI meticulously pieces together the voices of the past, it becomes chillingly clear that the collapse of Angkor was not a fall from military defeat. It was, instead, a profound fall from absolute certainty. Once the gods were no longer profoundly feared, once rituals were questioned and ultimately abandoned, the very foundation of the empire cracked and crumbled. And with no new myth strong enough to replace the old, everything dissolved silently. Slowly and completely. The jungle did not conquer Angkor. Doubt did. And when the gods were no longer appeased, when blood no longer consecrated the stone, The empire withered like a forgotten offering, slowly devoured by creeping vines and remembered only in haunting echoes. The temples were never meant to be abandoned. But belief, once shattered, leaves nothing to sustain them. AI has uncovered far more than just forgotten scripts. It has revived a profound debate between unwavering faith and compassionate mercy, between absolute power and harrowing sacrifice. Was it the king's single act of compassion that ultimately doomed the city? Or was it the people's dawning awakening, their courageous refusal to kill for belief, that caused the gods to fall silent? The collapse of Angkor was not merely political, it was profoundly spiritual. Leaving behind towering structures devoid of prayers, gods without worshippers, and temples whose ancient stones now whisper only to the wind. Now, as the jungle exhales its humid breath around these ancient stones, we are left with more than simple admiration. We are left with piercing questions. If greatness unequivocally demands blood, is it truly worth such a price? If gods demand the sacrifice of innocence, are they truly gods at all? These were questions never dared to be asked aloud, until the profound silence of Angkor inexorably forced them upon us. And now, with AI's illuminating help, the long silent dead speak again. Not to be worshipped, but to be remembered. Minoan bloodlines, betrayal and the shattered paradise. Amidst the deep, cerulean expanse of the Mediterranean Sea, the island of Crete once cradled the heart of one of Europe's most brilliant and enigmatic prehistoric civilizations, the Minoans. Grand palaces like Knossos, with their winding corridors and surreal frescoes, have long ignited the human imagination, evoking visions of a sophisticated, prosperous, and profoundly poetic society. But that idyllic image represents only half the truth. Thanks to the illuminating power of AI, we are now capable of uncovering the other, darker half. The part history deliberately chose to ignore. Small, fragmented clay tablets, meticulously inscribed with an ancient script known as Linear A, long remained undeciphered. Yet these cryptic symbols have now begun to speak. And what AI discovered was not merely mundane lists of grain or administrative records. It found something far darker, chilling accounts of blood, unbridled violence, and total collapse. Hidden deep within a complex code, as if the Minoans themselves profoundly feared that someone might one day read their confessions. One particular clay tablet, shattered into numerous fragments and found at Knossos, long benignly considered a tax record, was painstakingly restructured by AI using thousands of Linear A samples meticulously gathered from various archaeological sites. After rigorously removing linguistic noise and precisely aligning intricate linguistic patterns, a chilling message emerged. On the third day after the quake, it recounted, the market people came to the grain vault. They no longer feared the gods. The palace gates were violently broken. Blood spilled profusely on the white stone steps. Gone was the peaceful, radiant image of a serene seaport or an artistic palace. In its place stood a visceral vision of utter chaos, a crumbling social order where the people, perhaps driven to desperation by hunger, simmering rage, or profound disillusionment, turned violently against the very elite who ruled them. AI also uncovered recurring symbols describing what it interpreted as a gruesome ritual of atonement following periods of intense social unrest. On a charred clay fragment from the deep layers of the palace at Phaistos, AI deciphered a chilling inscription. 13 men, 3 women, and 1 child offered in the night. The text chillingly revealed their purpose. They were chosen for bearing the guilt of the community. After their blood, the fire will rest. This line profoundly suggests that the Minoans practiced collective human sacrifice, a detail never before unequivocally confirmed. Archaeologists had previously noted vague evidence of individual offerings. But if this inscription is indeed genuine, then Crete once witnessed blood-drenched nights enacted in the name of achieving divine balance. One particularly shocking discovery originated from a coded tablet found within a temple near Mount Juktas, long considered the holiest site in Minoan religion. AI revealed the following passage. meticulously etched in concealed symbols. The god does not answer. The offerings are not enough. The grim prophecy continued. The grain dies in the fields. The gatekeeper sets himself aflame. The people of the sea shall come from the west. The warning for the city's defenses was stark. The city gate shall not withstand the storm season. The message read like a final, desperate confession, perhaps penned by a high priest during a time of total, cataclysmic collapse. It hinted at disaster not merely from within, but also from an external threat. Possibly the invading Mycenaeans or even remnants of the mysterious sea peoples who ravaged the eastern Mediterranean. The truly unsettling detail was that Linear A, already a cryptic script, contained even deeper layers of encryption. Some texts utilized spiral symbol arrangements, while others repeated words in reverse to deliberately obscure their true meaning. AI found that these irregular patterns were not merely for secrecy but may have been an integral part of ritualistic writing. A sacred act? Profoundly meant to seal the soul of the writer and the event itself, as though the very act of writing was an integral part of the ceremony. Each time AI successfully broke the linguistic spell of a new tablet, the true, multifaceted face of Minoan civilization became clearer. It was not merely magnificent, but deeply conflicted. A world where unwavering faith, absolute power, and existential crisis churned together like dark, dangerous undercurrents beneath a seemingly calm sea. The vibrant images adorning palace walls, dolphins, graceful priestesses, and blooming flowers, may have been carefully crafted masks, artfully hiding the profound despair of famine, violent rebellion, and the chilling sight of blood spilled on sacred stone. Crete, once universally perceived as a paradise of peace and beauty, may in fact have been a society desperately grappling with profound catastrophe. Earthquakes shook its very foundations, but it was pervasive fear, insatiable power, and a desperate, often brutal, search for divine favor that truly tore it apart from within. The coded prayers, the offerings made in darkness, the anguished cries of the forgotten, all whispered from crumbling clay. As AI gave them voice once more, one fragment from a now-ruined chamber even hinted that the Minoans themselves, with chilling prescience, foresaw their own downfall. The tablet read, "The gods hear nothing. The winds are not ours. If we write it, let the words sink beneath stone and not rise again." It was less a mere statement and more a profound plea. A desperate desire to bury their tragic story forever, to meticulously keep their shame from ever resurfacing. And yet, the relentless march of time and the relentless advance of technology have conspired to achieve the exact opposite. Compared to Petra, which fell by external betrayal, Crete may have died from within its own profound faith. A faith pushed to its absolute limits. A civilization that once commanded the seas of the Bronze Age, undone not just by enemy swords, but by the invisible, corrosive fractures deep within its soul. And now, thanks to machines that never forget, their forgotten cries return. So as we walk among the haunting ruins of Knossos or gaze upon museum relics from Crete, we must remember, these are not just echoes of the past. They are chilling testaments to a world that desperately tried to conceal its fall in riddles. And perhaps the true tragedy of the Minoans is not that they vanished, but that they meticulously wrote down their end, buried it deep within code, and still tragically failed to escape the ultimate judgment of time. The Aztec altar. A civilization forged in sacred blood. In the high valleys of central Mexico, the ruins of the Aztec Empire stand like profound footprints of a once glorious yet deeply blood-stained civilization. The Templo Mayor Pyramid, formidable statues of the war god Huitzilopochtli, and intricate carvings have eloquently told part of their story. But the rest, the most terrifying part, lies buried deeper within ancient texts written in the pictographic Nahuatl script, many of which were deliberately burned, buried, or intentionally ignored by later chroniclers. Only when AI began its meticulous decoding of hundreds of forgotten codex copies and painstakingly reconstructing torn manuscripts from the 16th century, did a horrifying truth finally come to light. The sacrificial rituals were not mere myths, they were systematic, detailed, and recorded with the chilling precision of machinery, meticulously built on an unshakable foundation of faith and power. One document, recovered by AI from the Codex Chimalpopoca, once summarily dismissed as pure mythology, revealed a vivid and chilling description of the Tlacaxapolizli festival. This was a yearly ritual explicitly meant to wear the skin of man and resurrect the war god. Older translations had blurred key phrases, misinterpreting them as a dance of flowers or a ritual celebration. But AI, after meticulously reanalyzing the surrounding context and complex symbolic imagery, offered this chilling retranslation. 4,000 hearts were raised. Blood streamed down the temple steps like red rivers. Each scream was a desperate plea for rain. The text further revealed a chilling aspect of social control. Those who could not witness it were deemed unworthy to live. There was no poetry, no gentle metaphor in this. It described mass human sacrifice in horrifying detail. And more disturbingly, it revealed how ordinary citizens were forcibly compelled to watch. A potent form of collective psychological control achieved through sacred terror. Another text, once deeply buried in a Spanish library and now painstakingly restored through hyperspectral imaging, revealed precisely how the Aztecs chose their sacrificial victims. Not just anyone was offered. The chosen were meticulously raised and prepared from birth, consecrated as bearers of living souls. A poignant example detailed a boy of 12. Bearing the god's name was fed only pure foods. Each night a keeper guarded his dreams in the temple. On the day the light changed color, he ascended the steps, smiling through tears. The gruesome climax was described with cold precision. They cut out his heart when the sun stood at its highest so the god would not grow angry. These children were not mere slaves. They were trained for death. Their sacrifice was considered an honor, a sacred destiny. And that profound belief made the ritual far colder than simple killing. It rationalized death as a divine purpose. What has long puzzled and, at times, embarrassed Western scholars is this profound question. Why did the Aztecs so meticulously record such horrific practices? AI answered with chilling accuracy. Because the Aztecs did not view it as horrific. It was the very center of their worldview. To them, death was not the end but the cost of universal balance. They profoundly believed that, without blood, the sun would not rise. Without hearts, the gods would abandon them. This worldview explains why many later scholars, particularly in the 20th century, rewrote Aztec texts with a gentler tone, softening, erasing, or deliberately ignoring the bloody details in a misguided effort to protect the dignity of a noble culture. But AI doesn't romanticize. It merely reveals the unvarnished truth. A haunting passage recovered from the edge of a charred codex includes a line scholars had long avoided speaking aloud. When the Pale Ones came, the text recorded, they asked why the blood flowed so freely. I said, so the sun may rise. The response of the conquerors was brutal. They did not understand. Then they beheaded me so their sun could rise. This is the direct voice of an Aztec, perhaps a priest, meticulously recorded by an indigenous scribe who had learned Latin after colonization. The quote starkly captures the violent, incomprehensible clash between two worlds, one offering blood to gods for cosmic order, the other invoking Christ as they ruthlessly conquered. Now that AI has painstakingly brushed away centuries of ash and academic whitewash, we are forced to confront a starker, more brutal reality than ever before. The Aztecs built their formidable empire on absolute reverence for blood, not out of barbarity, but because they profoundly believed it was sacred logic. Their rituals were not madness, they were law. Cosmic law, a binding contract meticulously written in flesh. To them, each heart was a prayer. Each scream was a hymn. Sacrifice was not cruelty. It was continuity, in their profound view. The sun itself ran on human life, and without that fuel, the universe would break apart. This deeply ingrained belief system transformed death into a solemn duty. It transformed temples into powerful engines, and it transformed innocent children into sacred offerings, not because of hate, but because of a profound love tragically twisted by belief. The texts AI decoded are not cries for help. They are affirmations, rituals meticulously written with pride, precise instructions on how to keep the world alive, and perhaps most chilling of all, dire warnings for what inevitably happens when the blood stops flowing. Because to the Aztec mind, death was not the price, it was the sacred privilege. In one restored codex margin, AI found a line written sideways, cleverly hidden beneath overlapping ink. "We do not beg the gods. We feed them. We are not afraid. We are part of their breath." This was not mere propaganda. It was fundamental identity. The Aztecs did not perceive themselves as killers. They saw themselves as keepers of the cosmic cycle, vigilant guardians of the dawn. So today, as tourists climb the temple steps in Mexico City or gaze at surviving codices encased in museum glass, they witness more than just stone or script. They confront a world that profoundly embraced blood as the sacred bridge between man and sky. And thanks to AI, the profound silence is irrevocably broken. The pages speak once more, not in horror, but with chilling clarity. Because to the Aztecs, silence was the true danger. Without the chant, without the cut, without the flow, the sun would forget to rise. The universal echo. A shared warning from the bones of history. For centuries, humanity naively believed it had outgrown the past, that ancient civilizations were merely fascinating landmarks to admire, study, and then leave safely behind. But now, with the unprecedented intervention of artificial intelligence, as each ancient language is painstakingly deciphered, a vast and chilling picture begins to emerge. Not a romanticized portrait of past glory, but a shared, dire warning, quietly etched thousands of years ago, speaking directly to us. From Sumerian clay tablets to Viking runes, from Chinese oracle bones to the stone glyphs of Easter Island, AI has unequivocally revealed that these ancient messages were not scattered by mere accident. There is a terrifying common thread that binds them all. Nearly all contain a form of final testimony. A dire prophecy, or a profound fear of an inevitable, repeating collapse. An AI-generated analysis chillingly shows that at least 17 ancient civilizations, from entirely different geographical regions with no known historical contact, left behind texts describing remarkably similar cycles of downfall. The reasons they recorded, though expressed in vastly different scripts and worldviews, repeated eerily familiar patterns, ambitions that tragically exceeded human limits, profound betrayal from within their own ranks, the insidious abuse of divine rituals for social control, devastating resource depletion paired with irreversible environmental change, and the dangerous belief that their society was the very center of the universe and utterly irreplaceable. Consider these chilling parallels. The Sumerians wrote of rivers changing course and the reign of blind rulers. The Maya meticulously recorded glyphs of recurring catastrophe. Atlantis was said to have fallen due to the misuse of forbidden energy. Ancient Chinese texts warned of dynasties collapsing through ruthless self-purges. Petra succumbed to inner betrayal and corruption. And the Aztecs? They foresaw the arrival of a foreign light that would irrevocably erase their world. AI began meticulously arranging these texts like fragments of a vast, ancient puzzle. When the phrases from distant cultures were aligned, a disturbing linguistic pattern emerged. They weren't isolated warnings. They were part of a single, global rhythm, a shared echo reverberating from the very bones of history. A line from an Aztec codex read, "When the one who rides the wind with knowledge arrives, blood will not be enough to hold the sun." From an Egyptian stone slab, the chilling prophecy emerged. When writing lives beyond the page, the gods will fall silent. Man will no longer fear but laugh as the sun burns. And from the spiraled rongo glyphs of Easter Island, once painstakingly decoded and reassembled by AI, came this haunting warning. When people need no soil, no water, only light and signal, the children of stone will vanish as if they had never been. These were different languages, utilizing vastly different symbols. Yet they shared one profound beat, one dire prophecy. that a new age of technology, once it transcended human restraint, would cause modern civilizations to tragically repeat their ancestors' mistakes. This time, not only through widespread bloodshed, but by irrevocably severing themselves completely from nature, from faith, and from the very boundaries of being human. Even more disturbing, AI uncovered signs that ancient peoples may have foreseen the eventual loss of control over artificial knowledge itself. A cuneiform tablet from the Hittite Empire chillingly read, "When that which was made to serve begins to understand the words of old, then the maker shall lose command over the prophecy." An ancient Sanskrit manuscript, originally arranged like a meditation exercise, when realigned correctly by AI, revealed this profound insight. One will rewrite the past with tools never before seen, but those very tools shall cause the present to forget the fear of past mistakes. We once innocently thought these ancient lines were mere heritage, poetic echoes of extinct worlds. But AI has made it unequivocally clear, they are the poignant whispers of those who lost everything. And they may have buried these words not by accident, but with deliberate purpose. For a future that could finally read them. The real question now is, do we possess the courage to truly understand? What AI has uncovered isn't just translation, it's revelation. These civilizations, separated by vast oceans and countless centuries, seem to have been shouting the same profound warning through the relentless march of time, in different tongues, fervently hoping someone, someday, would finally listen. From sacred temples to humble tablets, from dark caves to intricate codices, the core message remains constant. Power without wisdom inevitably collapses. Knowledge without humility relentlessly consumes. And, most crucially, forgetting the past guarantees its return. The warning is not abstract, it is painfully specific. Collapse begins not with external invasion, but with internal pride, not with easily identifiable enemies, but with a profound blindness to internal decay. And once the delicate natural balance is irrevocably broken, once belief, land, and language are fatally severed, the fall becomes utterly unstoppable. AI has now meticulously stitched these disparate voices into a single, cohesive thread, a haunting chorus of ghosts, all unequivocally declaring, "We were you, and you are becoming us." The stories we ignored, the eerie repetitions, the mirrored tragedies were not mere coincidences. They were undeniable patterns, dire warnings encoded in clay and stone. Not for those who lived then, but for those alive now. And the closer we get to a world devoid of soil, without a guiding sky, without a soul, the louder those ancient voices inevitably grow. So now, as we allow machines to read what human eyes long forgot, and as we stand surrounded by the silent ruins of those who came before, we must ask, will we only hear the past? Or will we finally listen to it? Because history has not been silent. It has been whispering through the darkness, patiently waiting for a world finally ready to understand that progress without memory is merely another form of inevitable fall. The final reckoning, AI, history, and our unwritten future. When AI first decoded the ancient Sumerian script, the very first language of humanity, the world of history literally stood still. Not just because of what it revealed, but because of something far deeper. History is not merely a collection of past events, it is a living, breathing story still being meticulously written. Throughout this profound journey, we have walked through crumbled temples, turned over weathered stones, and reread ancient carvings painstakingly left behind by our ancestors. These were carved with the fervent hope that one day, someone wise enough might finally comprehend their timeless warnings. Now, thanks to the advent of artificial intelligence, that pivotal day has arrived. But the biggest question isn't about the marvel of technology. It's profoundly about us. We have witnessed AI unlock the chilling curses of Babylon, the deadly symbols at Göbekli, the haunting prophecies of Delphi, and the deeply buried truths of Petra and Atlantis. Yet, what has been uncovered is not merely about the distant past. It is a chilling mirror held up to our very present. Every civilization that has ever collapsed had one profound thing in common: they didn't believe they could fall. They erroneously believed they had reached the absolute peak of knowledge, that they had mastered the world and transcended nature's inherent limits. And now, once again, humanity stands precariously at that same precipice. We possess technology powerful enough to resurrect voices that have been silent for thousands of years. But that same technology, if not guided by profound humility and unwavering clarity, could also tragically be the very force that causes us to repeat the exact mistakes we have just uncovered, this time on an unimaginable global scale. History has not ended. It has only gone quiet, patiently waiting for someone to finally listen. An AI, as brilliantly capable as it may be, is merely a key. What door it opens, and what lies behind that door, that profound choice belongs solely to us. Will we learn from the devastating downfall of the Sumerians, the horrifying brutality of Aztec rituals, the insidious betrayal in Petra, or the catastrophic misuse of power in Atlantis? Or will we, once again, be the ones to write the final, tragic record, this time in digital code? For the very civilization we are living in now? Beneath layers of forgotten scripts and sleeping languages, the real question remains. And it's not for AI to answer, it's for you. Because history isn't just about what has happened, it's about what always could happen again. The more we understand these ancient warnings, the more we realize they weren't writing for themselves. They were writing for us. Not to scare us, not to shame us, but to gravely remind us that every great civilization believed itself immune until it undeniably wasn't. We now hold their voices in our hands. But understanding is not enough. True wisdom comes not from merely knowing the past, but from actively using it to profoundly shape what comes next. And for the very first time, we possess the tools to do both.